we start, actually, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming. Breathe responsibly. We have a lot, very little oxygen here, so breathe responsibly. Woo!
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and greetings to all of you that are watching this online. And welcome to SDSI Open, Volume 1. We have 3 questions today to start this talk session. Who are we? Where are we? And why are we here?
Okay, I start with a simple one here. Who are we? The SDSI is the International Masters Program, abbreviated as Service Design Strategies and Innovations, where 4 universities from 3 countries have come together to build something meaningful. And it's Art Academy of Latvia, Art Academy of Estonia, Lapland University, and Stockholm School of Economics in Riga. So that's a 2-year master's program, focusing on developing, indeed, the service design strategists. That's a primary aim. We're in the 2nd year of the program ourselves, have seen great results out of the first 2 years we've run the program. And the most important thing to mention is we're looking forward for the 3rd year, where the program has been awarded. And fun fact, I think the first in the history of Latvian academic education, the program has been awarded the Erasmus Mundus grant, which will allow us to have the students from all over the world joining the program. And we're indeed looking forward for the next year as a step up of something that already has had a solid ground.
Indeed, and maybe some of the students that are going to join us next September are also watching us online, so special greetings to you. The second question was, where are we? We are in the needle factory in Kuldīga. That is the SDSI campus and location in Latvia. Before the students move further to Finland and Estonia for their 2nd year studies. And why are we here? It is to celebrate the completion of the regular study year. Also to celebrate the fact of the first graduates of the SDSI study program, and to institutionalize service design talks and to have a tradition of such public talks within our study program. So, without further ado, I'd like to present you the first speaker, who is a saxophone player and a jazz band experience, but otherwise she is known as the president of the Global Service Design Network, Birgit Mager.
Woo.
Well, thank you so much for the introductions, and congratulations for the success of being awarded. This is awful. Yeah, maybe. Sorry. It's awful. You hear me? Yes. Okay, so congratulations to SDSI. It's an amazing program, and I'm super proud of having been a tiny part of it. I would like to talk today about passion, because passion is what brought us here, and passion is what will hopefully bring the graduates of this program to spark the world and bring service design into all systems. Passion is a powerful force. Passion gives you energy to do things that you would not have thought possible. Passion can feed your motivation through times when things are getting rough. Passion can create resilience against obstacles. Passion gives you a sense of fulfillment in life, and it can create wonderful relationships and networks. So passion is a force, a power that we should be careful once we find it, and we should embrace it. Passion comes in many different shapes and colors. You can be passionate about collecting stamps. You can be passionate about climbing mountains, or you can be passionate about flying to the Mars. I'm passionate about service design. And I would like to share a couple of examples with you from the work I've been doing with my students in this case throughout the last years. And maybe that helps understand what makes me so passionate about service design and what makes others passionate about service design. So let me start with a project that I've been doing in the year 2011, so it's more than 10 years ago, with the students of Köln International School of Design in Cologne, Germany. We were invited by the city of Eindhoven to work with the problem of drug-addicted street prostitutes. And the city of Eindhoven had already created the so-called Tippel zone, a specific area at the fringes of the Philips plant where the drug-addicted street prostitutes were allowed to do their work. There was a specific container run by the Salvation Army where they could, clean themselves, get condoms, and there was a safety service that would try to make sure that the aggression against the women would not be too bad. But it was basically a very, very difficult situation still, and it cost the city of Eindhoven 500,000 euro per year, which of course was an issue, tax money being spent for such a situation. So the city of Eindhoven had invited me to come with the students and try to figure out what can we do about that situation. So indeed we went and we lived in the city of Eindhoven for 2 weeks to understand the situation. And of course we did service design, so we created a stakeholder map. And in that stakeholder map you see all kinds of different components, the caretakers, the women themselves, politicians, the citizens, the pimps and the clients. Of course we were not able to work with the pimps and with the clients, that was out of reach for us. But with the rest of the stakeholders we worked, and we took a deep dive into their point of view, into the needs they had, into the, pain points they saw. First of all, we had a close look at the care system. And one thing we found is that there were more than 9 different institutions in Eindhoven that were somehow in touch with the women, but nobody really knew them. And we kind of thought, why is that so? What if there was a one-to-one relationship with the women throughout their life, their transition maybe from drug addiction, from prostitution into a different way of life? So what if there was a one-to-one long-term relationship? We looked deeply into the world of the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army earned a lot of money and they ran the container, and their point of view was, it's their world and we accept it. We don't do anything to change it. And we kind of thought, what if the Tippel zone would trigger change? What if this would be the place to create new meaning? And what if the women could work there and earn money, not through prostituting themselves on the street, but through the work that now the Salvation Army was doing? So many what ifs. We looked at the environment and we found that the container was a nice place to get ready for work. You could do your makeup, you could clean yourself. As I said, you could get some coffee and condoms. And we kind of felt that it could be a place for reflection, inspiration, and learning. So we created mini modules of trainings, manicure, pedicure, hair doing, and things that they would be doing anyway, but we translated them into learning modules. So we looked, of course, we had spent a lot of time with the women, and that was a very interesting learning experience also for us, because they were different from all other users, let's say, that we had been working with in the past. But we managed to build relationships with them, and we learned that their career was one of trying and failing. Many of them had done up to 20 detox, and after the detox, usually they were lost because they had no place to sleep, they didn't earn money. So in the end, they went back into the Tippel zone because there they could earn money and it was better than stealing. So we asked our question, what if we could create a long-term journey to make change happen and to stabilize it? So all these what if or how might we questions led to a concept that we called Lebenskraft, which means so much as living power. And the city of Eindhoven was very enthusiastic about this concept with a one-to-one, long-term relationship, changing the meaning of the place, helping the women to develop, supporting them in many ways, and rewarding them for change. So that was implemented with a test group of 3 women, and it was so successful that after 2 years, they had taken all the women from the Tippel zone through that Lebenskraft project, and they closed the Tippel zone. Which does not mean that none of the women worked in prostitution anymore or that none of the women were drug addicted anymore, but it meant that they had found a better way for themselves to live as opposed to prostituting themselves in this really bad and hard to imagine environment. So this project was really meaningful for us. We felt that service design can make a difference, and that's maybe what feeds our passion for it, that you really do things that are meaningful, that can make a difference. This is, by the way, a feature that the Korean television did about social service design, and they were super disappointed because the Tippel zone was no longer there. So how do you make a reportage about something that doesn't exist any longer? But they did. So that was really nice. And yeah, we were really passionate to do something that is meaningful, and we also helped to create meaning for the other stakeholders in the system. It was also something that allowed us to be professionally curious. And I think curiosity is something that is strongly related to passion. Always eager to learn something new, always eager to find out something new. And I think service designers are professional, curious people. They are investigators. We learned a lot, but we also helped other people in the system to become investigators, which made them passionate about creating new understanding of things. The whole project was super courageous. For us, it was courage. You can imagine students from all over the world looking 2 weeks into such a very, very difficult situation. They needed courage to do so. But we also encouraged the courage of other stakeholders, trying out new things, prototyping them. And I think service design is a magic force to create courage because you can experiment in a safe space. You can build prototypes and try out things by reduction of the impact of failure. And that's also something that feeds passion. And last but not least, we created new relationships. And that's also a great power of service design. I would like to share one more collaboration, also to underline the fact that we as service designers should be focusing on implementation. It is not about finger exercise to make nice storyboards or pretty post-it walls. It is about creating concepts that make sense, that are meaningful for different stakeholders, and that are meaningful in a way that they get the support to be implemented. And that means that we are forced to not only take the end user into view, we need to take the system into view. And we need to regard our clients as users as well. We need to take the clients on a journey that they are motivated in the end to make the change happen. So in this series of projects, I've been collaborating with the city of Cologne throughout the last 5 years. And the collaboration started when the city of Cologne asked me if we could create a future lab for them. They already had the space, and their idea was basically the service design students could decorate it. We could decide which furniture, which colors, etc. would be in that space. And I said no. That's something you often have to do as a service designer, because you will be invited to put band-aids on wooden legs, and you should not do that. You should help the client to reframe the problem and to reframe the project. So with the city of Cologne, I had very, very constructive conversations, and we decided that yes, we would help them to build the future lab, but not by decorating it, but by co-creating it with the future users. And that were in first priority the employees of the city, because in this case, first step is to motivate the employees for new ways of working. And that's what we did. We created cardboard prototypes in that space. We invited the employees of the city of Cologne to do workshops with us. In those workshops, they evaluated how does this space work? What else do we need in order to change our way of thinking and our way of working? And we drank a lot of Fritz Cola because we needed it for our furniture. And to be honest, the Future Lab is more than ever in existence in Cologne, and some of the furniture that we created in this phase of the prototyping and iteratively developing is still there. For example, the Fritz Cola shelf everybody loves. So we did this as a collaborative project with the employees of the city, and they started loving the space. They started loving the new way of working. They started loving the way of breaking hierarchies and no longer being afraid of speaking up. So in the sense, we also were passionate, and they were passionate, because we created a new meaning for collaboration. We gave them the permission to be curious and to not jump on first solutions. We gave them the permission to experiment and to not be afraid of failure, which in the public sector is often the case. We enabled them to collaborate in a cross-department sense to break the silos. So the team was super happy, and ever since I've been working with the students, with the city of Cologne. And by the way, the whole furniture in the end was done by 3 of my students, 2 of which have now been hired by the city of Cologne. And that is also impact. I mean, when we work in university, of course we have limitations, but we should be willing to dream beyond these limitations and see how far can we go, how far can we really impact our environment through service design to make the world a slightly better place. So ever since we have been working together, we have built a pop-up lab for the city of Cologne that can use temporary space in order to do participatory design with the citizens of Cologne. We worked in a container on one of the central spaces in Cologne with the students. So we had a pop-up lab for our seminar, for our project. We created first models, and we then built the whole thing and implemented it. This is a tiny video from the prototyping and testing phase. From the testing, we got a lot of interesting feedback. We improved in one more iteration. And I'm not going to show the whole video, but then we handed over the prototype to the city of Cologne, and that was in 2022. And you won't believe they started using the prototype immediately, and they are still working with the prototype today, because the prototype was so good, the furniture, the games, everything, it's alive. And today, the testing of a new project starts. We have been working with the citizens of Cologne and the waste management agency to see what can we do in order to make Cologne a more sustainable city. Just one tiny building block of this. There is a lot of private waste being put on the street, and many of the things out there are still good. They can be used. So the students came up with a concept to do like the book sharing boxes. You can put things in there and people can take them out. And the city of Cologne supports this idea. So the Ordnungsamt, which is kind of like the not police, but they make sure that everything is in good shape in the city. They have given permission for a 1-month test period of this thing. And today it's being set up, and there's a nice party tonight with the people that live in that area to say, hello, here is our give and take box. And so this is the kind of projects that we're doing, and I can always see that the students are passionate. I'm still passionate after, I would say, almost 30 years of work, and many of the people we work with kind of are sparked by the passion that we have for service design. So I hope that after your studies here at SDSI, you will take that passion and the sparks. You will be able to work in a meaningful way and give meaning to the work that others do, give them a purpose for what they are doing. I hope you will be able to live your curiosity in a professional way and to have the courage to change perspectives, to reframe challenges, to try out new things, and you will be able to encourage others to have that courage as well. I hope that you will be able to connect with people and to help people to connect with each other, to work in an interdisciplinary, constructive way. So all this, and in the end, I hope that the sparks will flow not only for you, but also for those people you work with. And I hope you can grow your passion for service design. So thank you very much for your attention, and enjoy the rest of the day. I would now like to ask Christian to come and join me on stage. Christian is is from Stockholm, and he's come on stage with me. He's working there for McKinsey Design. I'm very closely connected to McKinsey Design because my very first graduate from KIST, Stefan Moritz, works with McKinsey Design, and they are colleagues. And I know that Christian is passionate about his work, working in complex systems, trying to make transformation happen. I know you're passionate also about your colleagues. You told me yesterday that it's really great to work in such a network of bright and positive people. I know you're also passionate about your family. He has 2 kids, one of which has been bitten by a mosquito last night, 3 days ago, and yesterday we had the pleasure to see the kid with an ear triple the size of normal.
Oh, at least
Poor
triple.
boy.
Yeah.
And I know you're passionate about the summer house at the south of Sweden, and yeah, you're just a passionate person, and it's lovely to be talking with you on stage. So, do you think there are any questions about what I just talked about?
Well, first of all, thank you for this kind and personal introduction. And I do have a question for you. But I wonder, maybe perhaps the audience has a question or two first. So let's see.
We do have time for questions. Raise your hands. I'll help you with the mic. Any? I have actually a question, if I may, Birgit. And my question relates to the second story of Toekomstlabor, this future working environment. And I picked up at a point which is very dear to my heart when you were talking about that the space changes the way we behave. The space changes the way we talk, breaking down hierarchies and things. Just can you elaborate what exactly was happening there? Because you were observing how the space really did influence the people collaborating. If you can tell a bit more about that, because I'm really interested in that. And just prepare the questions.
I'm in the fortunate role that I studied psychology and, among other things, environmental psychology. And it's really, really interesting to see how space changes attitudes and behavior. I had Kurt Lewin, who is one of the really famous psychologists. He had a formula saying, behavior is an outcome of attitude and environment. So it's attitude that shapes our behavior, but it's also environment, and it's much easier to change the environment than it is to change the attitude. So if you start by creating an environment which takes out hierarchy, people will change their attitude. If you change an environment to make it more playful, people will be more playful.
Yeah.
So the opportunities that we create through space are super important, and that's why I believe service design is a magic force, because in the best case, the designer is an integrated designer and has a lot of experience in space, in visualization, in doing all those tangible things, while really designing for the intangible.
Yeah, I really would love to emphasize that it's the behavioral change, because the attitudes are difficult to change. So you can start with changing environment and you're already halfway there, right?
Yeah.
That's a cool idea, actually. I'll sink it in. Any questions, ladies and gentlemen? No? Silent crowd.
Come on, you're curious, aren't you?
Like people. But breathe responsibly. Yeah, Ilse.
Yes, thank you, Birgit. So I have a question about, because here we saw 2 of these projects, they were like physical service design projects. What about your maybe personal opinion or your experience with digital service?
Well, this whole project took place in the Department of Digital Transformation. So we created a space where the digital transformation for the city of Cologne was co-created with citizens and with the employees of the city. So it was located in the digital transformation. And I personally, we all know that in the reality, more and more services are becoming digital. And we as service designers very often have to make sure that the digitalization of services really creates value and is not just a translation of analog services that are stupid into stupid digital services. So I think the UK government has created a great example by having the service design manual as the guideline for the digitalization of the UK government. And I think that's a great case study to see how can service design make good digitalization happen.
Right. More questions to Birgit? Just use the opportunity.
Okay, so
Birgit is not necessarily every day around in Kuldiga, yeah. Eunice.
Hello, very nice to meet you. I'm Eunice, I'm the service SDSI student from Singapore, and I just want to ask you, like, service design is still very new. Not many people know about this. Maybe off the top of your head, what would you say are the biggest problems or needs for service design? What industries, what areas are the biggest needs for service designers right now?
Okay, that's a big question. I think it could open a next lecture.
Potentially.
But first of all, I think the distribution of service design all over the world is quite heterogeneous. There are countries where service design has already become the new normal. I would count UK, Finland, Netherlands. In Germany, it's not that visible, but it's there. Every big company has a service design team. My students are hired right away, either by companies, agencies, or the city, the public sector. So it is there. But of course, there's other countries where it's just rather new, even though it has existed for almost 30 years now. In those countries, I think you have to see what are the needs in the country and how can you, through service design, support the transformation that is happening. So there is not this one answer. I could say on a general scale, we see a lot of need for service design in the domain of finance, in the public sector, in the sense of mobility, because we do need to help to manage the climate change. We do need to help create systems that are pleasurable to use without having individual cars. So there is lots and lots of places. I have brought a book for the SDSI program, The Future of Service Design, and I hope that you will find some good inspiration there.
Right. There is one more.
I have a question on a totally different topic. What do you think about the role of generative AI in the process of designing services?
Yeah. I think it will play a major role in the future. I think we need to use, I would say, smart technologies in the broadest sense, big data, IoT, AI for our own work. I think in the past we have focused pretty much on qualitative work and we have argued that good qualitative research brings results that are valid, but now we have the chance through technologies to support our research, to enhance our research. So I think we as designers need to learn how to embed AI with all the critical reflections about the ethics, about the deep fraud, about all that. But we have to have this as a topic on our agenda. And we also need to be prepared to integrate AI and other smart technologies into the solutions we create for our customers. And we can only do that if we are knowledgeable about it. So we can no longer hide ourselves behind nice post-its and beautiful little Lego. We need to go beyond that and embrace technology more than we do today. Okay, so I think it's time for Christian. I would like to thank you, and I would like to thank SDSI also to be a wonderful member of the Global Service Design Network. I think all the students of SDSI have the chance to use the resources of Service Design Network, and the latest touch point was about smart service design. I have written an article there with help of AI. I have an interview with ChatGPT, and the students of KIST have created alternative cover versions for Touchpoint through AI. So in case you have not yet downloaded your personal copy of Touchpoint, please go ahead and do so. And again, thank you for being partner with the Service Design Network. Stage is yours.
Thank you so much, Birgit. How are everyone feeling? Are you okay? Is there enough air? Do you need water? Is it okay? No one's fainting? Okay, I'm starting to feel it a little bit, but okay, so if I fall off the stage, you'll have to catch me here at the front. My name is Christian Lindqvist, as Birgit was saying, as part of an organization called McKinsey & Company, where I'm a design director. I lead teams in solving complex problems for organizations through service design, but I also collaborate a lot with other experts and generalists. So I'm constantly forced to collaborate with others that are non-designers. And this is why I will try to speak to you about being a champion for design in a non-design context. Before we do this, though, I'll do a little bit of an exercise with you. It's a simple one, but it's going to activate you a little bit. So let me ask you to stand up if you prefer the color blue before purple. Anyone? Yeah, a lot of conservatives in the room. Yeah, I like it. Okay, have a sit. Please stand up if you think that Brad Pitt should never have left Jennifer Aniston. Yeah. So we got a few people that read gossip magazines. Stand up, please, if you think that service design should be everyone's degree. Yeah, go service design. Stand up if you've actually read Victor Papanek's 1971 book, Design for the Real World. Oh, we got some nerdy people in the room too. Woohoo. All right, stand up if you think that service designers can be really difficult to work with. Oh yeah, a couple of people. Right. So I've heard that this might be the case, that some of us are not so easy to work with. Despite our empathy and human-centered approach, it's not always too easy to collaborate with a service designer. So this is what we'll try to unpack a little bit in this session. And I'm going to try to stay on time. So as strategic service designers, you're really well equipped to work on strategic problems in cross-functional teams and really make a difference in the world. However, to really tap into this opportunity, I would argue that you need to learn to separate your service design craft from your operating model. They're two different things. And this is where we typically go wrong. So when we look at the operating model, that's how you lead yourself, how you lead others, how you spend your time efficiently, how you communicate, and also how you collaborate. These are things that service design don't necessarily teach us. We get methodologies for discovery, for being creative, for exploration, for building things, and even scaling things. However, we need to be much better at this other dimension that is crucial. And I'm here to help, because this can lead to frustration, and it can lead to miscommunication. It can also lead to missed opportunities, and we don't want that. We want to be this good force for good in the world that really can make a difference. And why should you listen to me? Well, for one, I've been a designer for almost 20 years, and I also spend my days in an organization that every day puts design ways of doing things into a room full of people that are non-designers. They don't do what we do. They do other things, and they bring other perspectives, and that's a good thing. I've also been a dancer, I've been an art director, I've been a creative director, and I did eventually become a service designer and design director. And to the very right there, I'm actually doing a keynote at the Stockholm School of Economics, so I thought it was fun to tie the bag together. This is not to say that I'm fantastic, it's just to say that in all these situations, I've constantly felt like I don't need to become a better designer, I only need to become a better collaborator. So even 2 years into my career, I was like, shit, all these things that I know, they don't matter unless I become a better collaborator. And I'm still trying to figure it out. But I'm going to share some strategies with you. Because I work for an organization that is full of really smart people. I'm never the smartest person in the room, and that's a context, by the way, that you should also seek out. Never be the smartest person in the room. You're in the wrong room. However, they're so smart that about 7 years ago, they decided to make design ways of doing things, or rather design thinking, one of their 5 official problem-solving methodologies. It's also been added advanced analytics, agile, and a couple of other things that are more complex than I'm able to explain. But this means that as a designer in this situation, you need to learn to communicate to others in a way that makes sense to everybody. And it took me a while to figure this out. And as I was saying, I'm still trying. But I'm going to share a few things with you that I think can help. So one of my early memories of a working session within McKinsey is this kind of situation where we're actually using sticky notes and we're making something on the wall, and I'm thinking that I'm bringing the best perspective. And no one is getting it. I'm being shot down. I'm crashing and burning, despite, real experience of having done this before, and that's also why I'm hired at this company. It was something I was doing wrong. So I'd like to argue that it is about communication. It is about how you frame your recommendations, and it's also about how you communicate your value proposition. So let's have a look at what it could be. If you want to be respectful with everyone's time, and if you want to get across with your message, you need to learn to communicate in a way that we call this top-down. And this has a framework that we call the pyramid principles that can be used to constructing the very presentation that I'm holding today. But it can also be used to, in your mind, on the fly, just decide what should I say in this moment and what should I keep for later if there are questions. It's also about adjusting your message to who you're speaking to. So are you speaking to your design colleagues, or are you speaking to the CEO of a multinational corporation? Your message needs to be different. It needs to be packaged differently, even though it comes from the same knowledge. So to illustrate this, I made up an everyday example. Imagine that you're moving house and you need help from a friend. You might be sending this text message. Say, hey friend, I'm moving house this weekend. My father was supposed to help me, but his car broke down, and I really need a car because I have such heavy stuff, and it's going to be impossible without a car. Can you please help me between these hours? Now, your friend will very well be forgiving for you not constructing your message in a really efficient way. However, imagine if you went straight to the point and said, hey friend, could you and your car please help me move house this weekend between 5 and 8, Saturday? And then following up with a bit of details. Actually, my plan A failed, but I would really appreciate if you could help me. Now, this example is not top-down. It's bottoms-up. You're starting with telling the person why something is important, instead of just going to the point. And this might be more damaging to your design practice than you can ever imagine. Because if you get this wrong in a collaboration session, you're not being respectful of people's time. You are also potentially not looking professional enough. So let's put this in a design context. What might that mean? Well, in your professional life, as I said, it might also mean that you are adjusting what you communicate, not just how. So here's a made-up opportunity from a design research initiative. So it's saying that professionals in service occupations that are working from home, they need a way to streamline their workflow in their home office. However, individual contributors in your organization, dear client, they're spending their time juggling household machines, they're trying to work in uncomfortable positions that are hurting their backs. Now, to many of you, I hope, this might understate clear business opportunities for developing new ways of working, new services, new products. However, to someone that is hiring you, this is like, okay, but so what? So I'd argue that you'd be much better off giving a straight recommendation. you should explore working from home solutions for individual contributors in service occupations to unlock new value streams. And then you can follow up with your findings or insights on why this matters. So it's putting the message on its head. To me, this was painful to adopt. I'm trying to package it in a simple way here. The structure behind it is called the pyramid principles. And it looks a little bit like this. So now it's getting a bit theoretical. But the thing is that you need to have a governing thought whenever you communicate with anyone, whether it's in ideation, it's in an email, it's in a steering committee, a demo, you name it. So you need to be able to lead with the so what of your design outcome. If it's research, if it's concept development, if it's testing of a new service. Then you can follow up with the key line, which is the supporting ideas, and that would be the insights that I presented on the previous page. And then follow up with a bit more details. If there are questions, if there is time, don't start here, because you lose everybody. So the hidden structure in this is that if you go down the pyramid, you get the answer to why. You should be developing these products. Why? Well, time is lost in working from home situations. Why? Well, there's other things that occupy people's minds. So what? We go up the pyramid. What should I do about it? That is the hidden structure. And I hope that's helpful because it will challenge the way you put your next delivery together. Number 2. So we talked about how you communicate. Now it's how you frame your message. As service designers, we love our craft. We love the way things are done. We cannot be more excited about a new methodology that is going to allow us to create an even more amazing map of how something works, or innovate more efficiently, or with greater depth and insight. However, that's for us to know. This is not what we should be telling others. It's not your job to teach your client how something was done, but rather what came out of it. What is the learning that is going to allow them to do better business, to make the world a better place? So journey mapping is, of course, one of the key things that many designers do. So imagine if you've been spending a week making mapping an important customer journey. You've created a beautiful visual artifact that has an emotional curve. It has insightful quotes. It has details of pain points along the customer journey. It's been designed in a custom large format to be printed and put on the wall, and it's amazing. But it's lacking the so what. It's for you to do the analysis. It's appendix content. It's not supposed to be there as part of your demo, your steerco, your final delivery. Do something like this instead. This looks boring, but it's simplifying a complex journey and points out what are the key things in a specific customer journey that is affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's marked with little viruses. And it's dry, it's boring, it's only blue, but some people in here like blue, so that's cool. But it serves the purpose. It comes from here, but it's presented like this. This is an outcome. It could also be that you want to present what are the potential solutions or visions for potential solutions in the same journey. This is visual and engaging. It's also okay, but an even better approach is to say, these are the 3 prioritized things that you should do. Here are the reasons why, and here how it's fitting into the journey. Questions? I'm happy to give you the details, but this is my recommendation. This is going to allow you to be much more efficient. It's going to make you look professional, and it's going to avoid important messages being lost because you're losing everybody's attention. Any design initiative benefits from being guided by clear insights from design research. And here are some examples of insight themes from a transportation for sustainability project. They are structured to be covering logical parts of the journey landscape of this organization. They're of course being presented as important content and basis for ideation in working sessions when there's time. However, when we're actually doing business, when we're actually talking to the people that are paying us and that are going to make the decision if something is going to change or not, this is what you need. This is the clear recommendation of the 5 things that you could be doing based on all this knowledge. So again, the top part of the image here, that's for you and your team and whoever is engaged in ideation to use. It's not for your final delivery. The bottom part is your outcome. And you can add prettier pictures too, but the content is what's important. Some of my colleagues have actually started to consider not to use the word design at all. And this is not maybe for every context. My approach has been to start to think about what is the business outcome that the design activity that I'm proposing will bring, and how are we going to do it. That is typically more efficient way of communicating. So when you're selling design, talk about customer satisfaction and competitive advantage and things that business people understand or things that engineers understand. And don't use your own language. Try to reframe it. And questions to consider when you're doing this exercise, I've listed here. Like, what is the business outcome that you're trying to achieve? What is the intellectual property that you are currently creating for your client? And other things. That might be helpful in reframing the message. So here's content that I've just pulled out of a proposal. I just wanted to illustrate how what we're trying to do here, this is for a diversity, equity, and inclusion study for the same transportation company that I was mentioning just before. But without diving into the detail of this one page, this is one phase of the project. We're trying to be super clear, what is it that we will be doing together, like activity-wise, and what will you be getting out of it at the end of the project? In the appendix, there are deep dives on certain methods that you can read up on if you're curious, if you have time. But this allows everyone to see, okay, we're going to be doing this, and great, we really wanted to make sure that we were going to be doing this hands-on crafty thing with you. So that's fine. You don't have to dive into the actual methodology. You can have that as in your back pocket to bring out if you want to prove your expertise. Communication, reframing what it is that you do, and finally, if we have time, how are we with time? We're good. Define your value proposition. So what it is that we do is not facilitate workshops. It's not being the pretty content creators. It's not the map-making people. But we need to think about carefully, what is the value proposition that we bring to the table? And I'm sure you know about value proposition design, the famous framework from Strategizer. If you don't, I have it here. So this framework brings structure to mapping actual business. What did I write here? It's helping you to map people needs, deep people need insights, to value creation. And some people choose to use this framework. I think it's cool, and I encourage you to go and check it out. However, what's even more interesting is if you put it on yourself. What if you put yourself as the value proposition, and your manager or your colleague or your client or your mom, your spouse, in the customer? What is the value that you can bring to solve their problem, and how do you do that? Has anyone done this exercise? Maybe? Yeah, good. When you were in the dating game, you're trying to figure out what's, yeah. I hear that. So I did this. It's like, what is it that I do that creates gains for whoever? In this case, is a product manager. I was trying to imagine what are the pain relief that I create, what are the things that I do, what are the jobs to be done of this product manager that I can help with. And that allows me to really reflect on how these things map. Because if you're familiar with this framework, you know then that the gains, the potential gains of this person should map to the gain creators that you have in your value proposition. And the jobs to be done should map to the things that you do to create value. So what I came up with is this. So here's my value proposition. As a strategic service designer, I help develop attractive and profitable offerings through process facilitation and deep people insights, enabling executive alignment and a high product or service adoption rate. And I would use this in relation to this product manager. I wouldn't sit down maybe and say, or send this person an email and say, here's my value proposition. But I would have this at the back of my mind and just be really careful how I communicate what it is that I do, if I'm selling my services or if we're planning the work or any other things. And then I would rephrase this for another stakeholder. So I would use my empathy to really understand what is it that I do for the people I collaborate with and serve that brings value to them, and how can I put it in a language that they understand so we don't get stuck in lingo about what is a persona and what is a customer archetype. Who's had that conversation? Final advice for your service design career. Don't be the person that thinks they don't get design. Use your empathy to figure out what it is that they get and what you can do for them, and then shape your practice accordingly. And with that, I leave you, and thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure. Feel free to give me feedback or ask any questions. If you choose to do this exercise, I offer you to coach you. So email me your thing or your questions, and I'll try to help as best as I can. Our next speaker is an Italian, very handsome man from the northeast of Italy. He has, with great effort, started a design consultancy with his friends and colleagues. He's a part-time teacher. He's also a hiker and who's been fighting the mosquitoes of northern Scotland successfully. And he shares with me the challenge of knowing that Latvia is a separate time zone from Central Europe. We're going to see if Tommaso has a question for me, or if we should hand over to the audience for questions.
Thank you so much. After the point 2, I was thinking to ask to you what was your value proposition. So I missed the question. But I would make it bigger because as a design director working in a bigger organization and from a small consultancy trying to innovate in another country, I'm very curious to ask you, what's the value proposition of design in McKinsey itself, if I can ask?
Putting me on the spot. I guess McKinsey & Company has realized that the world is evolving. The reality is no longer as complex as, no longer as simple as it used to be. It's growing in complexity. We can no longer just refine and make more efficient processes and value streams and other things that typical business consultants do. We need to partner with our clients and build things and solve problems from many different perspectives. And design thinking and service design brings a very important piece of the puzzle here. So without using the specific value proposition formula, that is the value that it has in management consulting.
Thank you very much. It was really inspiring. And there are some other questions.
Do we have some questions from the audience?
Thank you.
I do have one. It's probably very, very specific, and I'd love that you refer to McKinsey's practices. Selling of design, or the outcomes you nicely evaluated upon. Is that a job that should be done by service designers and service design strategists, or selling this is primarily done by other people or should be done by other people?
The selling, in my point of view, should be done by the people that knows the practice best. Any other attempt leads to a distorted view of the value creation and is not necessarily going to set you up for success. If that's...
I'm so glad you supported that view, because in this part of the world, and probably you can relate, historically selling has been seen like top down as something that, you know, the traveling salesmen do, but that is so important to do. The top people do the selling, because for the reason you mentioned. Thank you for that.
We don't call it selling, by the way. We call it client development. So it's very different.
Okay, so looks like we can continue with Tommaso. Thank you, Christian.
Rebuilding the stage.
Okay. So I ask her pardon because I was disruptive for the media set. So, thank you for the kind presentation. I'm Tommaso Corà. I always joke presenting myself saying that I am a designer with an MBA. And because in my work with companies and with students, I always try to push design as a mindset to face new challenges, connecting and interacting from design to business. And we have many strong and new challenges nowadays, and maybe we are not always ready for that. And very often we have no benchmarks of references to use as ready-made solutions to solve that problem. So maybe we have to innovate innovation itself, or to go research for new methodologies, new approaches. And this is part of the research I'm involved in, and what futures by design mean for me, and I will share with you today. So let's figure out it together. And to do that, let's start with a little experiment. So I'll ask you to stand up, me too, and think. Over 150 songs on Spotify start like this. So, close your eyes. Yes, and there are many. And don't open till I'll ask you to open, please. And imagine our world as it should be. Imagine innovative services that support people in their needs, helping them to achieve the gain they seek, helping them to solve the problems they experience. Businesses that support prosperous communities. What are they all about? What is important to you? What do you think is missing? What opportunities do you see over there? So, open your eyes now. Thank you. And I'm thinking now what you could have thought. Or maybe how far in the future did you go? So let's build up a little statistics. Who went in till 6 months in the future? Until 6 months. 1 year, until 1 year? Until 5 years? Until 10 years? More? Okay, so we are going so far. Mostly between more than 5 and maybe more. And so how can we imagine? Please stand, sit down, thank you. And now I ask you, how can we make this happen? And what foundation have we to build to make this real? And after building the foundations, what we have to do? So I do not have a complete answer or an operational plan to build that starting from now. But I guess, as designers, we can work to write the right questions to ask ourselves how to start and how to chart the path to arrive there. And this is my point today. So, if we define innovation as the realization of an original and useful future implemented on a large scale, the first most important and fundamental asset we have to use is imagination. Imagination consists in creating the mental representation of something is not happening here and now. Doesn't exist. And this imagining of future is an innate ability of human being and shapes how we learn and how we motivate ourselves in our life. Our ability to imagine futures is fueled by desire, but not as something appealing to us we want to reach right now, but as the self-creation of images of desirable futures that motivate ourselves to move to the future. Imagining our futures fuels the discussion about possible futures. And this ability to push our motivation in the present towards the future plays a key role and is the very foundation in our social, moral, and economic life. Every day, more than 40% of our thoughts live in a future dimension. And the ability to think forward in a flexible way is the unique and most important difference between our mind and other animals' mind. And in fact, we are the deadliest predator in this world without being the strongest or the fastest. So, planning, forecasting, and considering possible future scenarios is central in many parts of our life, both professionally and personally. And design is for sure one big part of it. As we shared today, and with the previous speakers, and thank you for your inspirations, design reads, analyzes, prototypes, and plans experiences our users somewhere in the future will experience. But to go beyond the limits of the present, design needs to embrace a broader perspective that considers the impact we can have on the system, so a broader view. And what does this mean? I believe that dealing with systemic problems, we need a new model of empathy that no longer looks at customers or users or humans, but the people and the context together we live in, from the individual user to society and the environment is around us. We could call the planet. So today, I call your attention to think about problems not as objects, but as ecosystems. We live in an environment and society in which our companies are part of our services in a complex system, and our balance with them is increasingly crucial in our business models. So, when we design, let's consider the complex group of stakeholders we are designing for as the planet. If we want to translate this operationally with some tools, let's use, next to the empathy maps, also pastel analysis. Let's put together all the things and let's see how the consequences impact on our broader systems. Nowadays, design services and experiences means framing value creation in which companies are embedded agent in the society and the environment. And companies have a dual nature. They produce wealth, but they eat resources as well. So widening the views through impact is also considering these opposites and transforming KPIs. And if you think about, we are living in a particular moment in which KPIs are changing a lot. In fact, if you think at accounting, accounting did not change very much from the 14th century when Italian merchants wrote in some ancient book the first modern formalization of a financial report. But nowadays, with SDGs from the 2030 agenda, SDGs are coming into financial reports alongside sustainability reports, and B Corp are increasing everywhere in the world. So this is already happening. And investors are also increasingly assessing beyond the top and bottom line of our financial reports how company interacts with the system and how they produce value in relation to others. So reasoning about impact with a systemic approach is transforming profit, an idea based on ownership, into prosperity, a concept based on the richness of the value that flow through the environment we are living in, the entire ecosystem we have called planet. So if we want to translate this operationally again, we can consider business models that are no longer two-dimensionally, but three-dimensionally, connected, circular, in which different stakeholders communicate in different directions, vice versa, and are immersed in a common environment. And what about technology? The third lens. What role has the marvelous fruit of human genius? We invest so much effort and so much money. Very, very much indeed. It's crucial, we know. But what I'd like to remember is that technology is a tool, an enabler, not the starting point. Dave Snowden, the author from the Cunevin framework, a framework for decision-making in complex environment, said in the Lean and Agile Summit in 2022 that the first step is to recognize that in complex environments, if we want to be efficient, if we want to be effective, we need to be inefficient. So, if we want to change a little bit, we have to learn also that we need to be partially inefficient, at least a little bit. And digital transformation has been an incredible race to efficiency. I see. Partially, it was. In companies, it was. And it has made us fragile, partially. And we have seen this with the pandemic. And in the systemic crisis, we are bouncing between. There is also a bad side. So it's not all bad, of course. And this has also stressed our social resilience and our concept of trust. So, to achieve the SDGs and design future-proof businesses, what I bring to the discussion is to consider technology innovation together with research for new meanings and asking ourselves how to create more prosperous environment connecting more values through technology as well. So, not by generating thousands of ideas, but fewer, better ideas, consistent with our purpose, based on a systemic vision, we will be able to imagine desirable futures to aspire to, and backcasting to chart the path to achieve them and design the journeys for our organization to get our goals. Only the futures we discuss about can influence the discussion about the futures we will pursue. And this is even more true if we consider as organization not only companies and corporate, but also other kind of human organization like schools, academies, government, countries, group of countries like European Community. So imagining future scenarios is one of the activities that design can do to enable a discussion about futures themselves. And that's the reason I'm thrilled to be here today, because a hybrid education integrating strategy, service design, and leadership that allow us to read the context and different point of view, enable the growth of possible leaders and people who can bring these dialogues to their companies and their startups and the organization they will work in. So, bring what you have imagined a few minutes ago in your next discussion to create futures in your organization. These are your desirable futures. And the future belongs to those who initiate it. Thank you.
Guys, before we break for a few minutes, are there any questions to Tommaso? Yeah. Let's imagine it's a catchball.
Thank you for the presentation. It was really good looking into how you think about everything in systems. But I have a rather challenging question, because when you first asked to imagine future, I was the one who was thinking like 1 year, 2 years from now. What's the value of imagining futures? Because the world is changing so fast that like whatever we imagine now may be old like in a month. So thinking about future of design and thinking like about imagining futures, like why should we think that far?
It's not you have to think of mandatory at 10 years, 20 years, but we all have our purpose and goals we want to reach in our life. Otherwise, we are lost. We pass really big part of our time thinking at our futures, and we just need to. We don't have to, but in many organizations, and in many ways we can think at organizations, we are losing common intent and common goals. And if you think at a systemic, with a systemic lens, also many ways we are shaping strategy is not working anymore, because we are implementing methodologies that don't help us to build future. So think at the future, bringing this to the discussion, and aligning common goals can help us to motivate ourselves to design the path to get there. This is why we have to do that. And this can be really practical, because it's just a reframing of how we think at things when we do projects. It's not utopia. Utopia is not to take care about that. That's what I bring into the discussion. It's not the truth for all, of course.
Thank you. A few more questions.
And I'm an entrepreneur, so I really know how to deal with clients, or I try to. So I don't propose to change the world in every project, but every project can be positive for the world around the project itself.
Okay, no questions. Actually, speaking of you being practicing service designer yourself, and again, maybe super silly, but very, very straightforward question. So, what is your predicting futures is a tough task, but from your perspective, what are those either industry verticals or maybe processes that you believe yourself will be disrupted most in, let's say, the span of 3 years? Let's not look any further. I have difficulties actually to picture myself any further than tomorrow. Okay, let's keep it that way. And I'm not sure that all the people have a plan in life. I haven't figured it out yet, but it's okay. That's myself. But yeah, what the areas or processes which you believe will be really changed in 3 years from now? Sorry for a super narrow thinking question.
No, it's perfect. What I see in my work, and I work mainly with manufacturing companies, not digital services, so company that they invest a big part of their richness in solid things or producing things also. B2B, B2B2C is what is changing a lot is the organization itself. And more and more we are speaking about innovation with HR managers, less than marketing manager or innovation manager, because what's happening all around the world is impacting a lot on human beings, and to really be effective in your work, whatever work you do, you need to bring people with you and to build up common goals and a common sense making. So I think organization design is really in a intense evolutive moment.
Thank you, Tommaso, for sharing these advanced thoughts from my point of view. I would really benefit from if you have an example of a lighthouse organization that is moving in this way that you're proposing and can be used to illustrate your point.
Yes, in the last year, this is one of the foundation of the systemic approach presented this way is one of the foundations of our methodology. And in the last year, we invested a lot of energy to write a book on it. That's out now, but in Italian, sorry. And we mapped, and this was just for the book, there are really many, 15 manufacturing Italian companies with different dimensions from 3 billions top line to 6 millions, okay? So very different, but all innovative in their own field. And it's happening in different parts of the organization, because change doesn't happen all in a disruptive way, otherwise you can die from what you're doing, you know? But I see organization, for example, this food producer, that was one of the first biological maker of jam in Italy. It's a big company. And now they are completely redesigning as they found that they were not anymore able to grow, but they were really believing in their values. They are now rebuilding all their strategy, working in a shared approach with people, starting from the designing of the desirable futures of the single employee and building up their own proper vision of the future. And this is an example that's happening in part of the organization. Another organization that you probably know, and Birgit for sure know because you love Vespa, so Piaggio. And Piaggio has a department that just investigate how society in different parts of the world is changing, and the way of being in the world for different countries is changing, and they spend their time educating internally the company to let them understand how to be systemic with this change in the society. So it's happening from different points.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any more questions? We're not up to questions in this room anymore. So which implies, thank you so much.
Thank you to you.
Which implies that we have a well-deserved break and go out, because the probability the oxygen is outside is high. We resume in 20 minutes from now. So 10 minutes before an hour, we keep going with a few more super cool presentations. Thank you. Hello everyone, welcome back. We start in literally a few minutes from now. Thank you for joining us back. Hope you had your share of oxygen out there. Thank you so much for asking that. As improving your experience, you know the open door policies, right? We will operate open window policy from now onwards. So it's basically welcome back. Hopefully, still please breathe responsibly. But we're about to start. I'm a simple guy, as you probably know, but this afternoon it dawned on me how impactful is the profession of an architect. You forget to plan air conditioning in a room and you let people suffer for long. Right, so, but let's hope the future, picking up on Tomaso's thing, let's hope the future brings us more considerate architects who would think of building the things right. All right, welcome back everyone, and as Ilse and I, we spoke in a very beginning. This is a collaboration of full universities, which again, local people would get the joke. It's difficult in Latvian bubble to cooperate per se. So we're super happy that we're pulling it off. And as the next speaker, I would love and like to welcome a representative all the way from Lapland, Finland, Krista Korpikoski.
Okay, I put the timer on. Weird, you know, standing here and hearing your voice over there, but let's see how this goes. So yeah, hello everybody, my name is Krista, and I work in the University of Lapland. Yeah, I come 2 hours by car from Lapland down south from the city of Oulu, not actually from the city itself, but you know, I'm from close to Oulu area. Yeah, I started my journey in the University of Lapland basically in 2008 when I did my industrial design studies, and I graduated in 2013 as an industrial designer, so I have Master of Art and Design. From there I moved on working in the area of service design. So I have worked and done projects as a consultant for small and medium-sized organizations both in Lapland and elsewhere, but then I ended up working in manufacturing industry in Finland in a multinational manufacturing corporation. The corporation itself has 60,000 people working for the corporation, and in 2014 they initiated an in-house service design team, so I started working there within the team together with my teammates. After working in there for 3 years, I was experiencing the organization and I saw the impact of service design. And suddenly it was, when we came in, after a few months, people started to have this huge buy-in and everybody started asking for service design. Hey, we want this to our project. They do so cool stuff, and they do so cool slides, stuff like that. So, again, design was understood that it's there to make things nice and pretty, even though many of the organization stakeholders told the other stakeholders that that's not necessarily what service designer does. It's more strategic, the work. So I got interested in the value of service design. And I started my journey in 2017 when I applied back to uni. I started with the topic of return on investment of service design and the value of it. But value as a word, it's huge. So when I collected data, I did a lot of interviews, I ran service design value workshops, and then I mapped the processes of those projects where service design and in-house service design had been in use. Anyway, as my journey continued in the University of Lapland, and I had a huge variety of topics I could do a PhD of, I ended up doing my PhD on organizational transformation through the perspective of service design. This has something to do with Melanie. Melanie used to work in SDSI. She is my supervisor. And then she and Satu Miettinen were editing a book, Empathy and Business Transformation. So I ended up writing my first book chapter to the book. Okay, let's go forward. And the button doesn't work. Oh, there it is. I was too fast. So, when we go to my research question, this is my primary research question of my PhD. What is required for an organization to transform its workplace culture towards human and customer centricity in order to enable the efficient integration of in-house service design? What I experienced in the cooperation as a service design was the new area, I discovered that for many stakeholders, it was hard to understand what service design is. It was pretty hard for them to cooperate with us because they thought that, you know, they are the designers and so on. So we wanted to, we experienced quite a bunch of challenges in our workplace culture that kind of were as bottlenecks. We couldn't take the work forward, or we suddenly didn't get any meeting invitations, and it was like we were excluded from the projects. So I was also interested in the challenges, but I was also interested in the positive, the pros and cons, to say. But when it comes to service design, I consider it as a human and customer-centric practice. And why I talk about, and what I mean with customer centricity here, in this case it means business-to-business organizations with whom we worked. And human centricity means also the other organizational stakeholders who are involved in the service design projects when we do the project work. So it's not just including the customers, business-to-business customers, but also internal organization stakeholders and the possible network partners who are involved in developing a service. User centricity I don't bring up here because it is a natural part of the organization already, since users have been as a part of product development activities within the R&D department. Anyway, I did my first book chapter on, it had the perspective of empathy and business transformation, so I had to bring in the empathy, and I'm asking here, how can an organization evolve into being more receptive to service design as an empathic development approach? So I started looking, because I had done a lot of interviews, so I basically went to look the narratives, and I found out that there are the phases of before service design, what happened in the organization, and the time when service design team kicked off, and the time and early phases of the usage of service design. So in this publication, I was interested in the stuff that happens in the organization before the service design team kicks off. How does the organization evolve so that they become and are prepared and ready to launch service design as a human and customer-centric development approach when developing services? And the other two book chapters that I've written come to the same book. It's now under proofreading. The book is about to be published in August. And I did two book chapters. This basically shows the pros, and this basically concentrate on the cons, like positive and negatives of service design. So here I'm looking at the value of service design from the positive perspective, and I look into how does the positive values of service design really support an organization workplace culture to transform. But then again, the coin always has two sides. So I was also interested in the challenges. So in this other book chapter, I'm looking into how do the organizational stakeholders perceive service design, and what do they experience as the challenges when they work with service designers. And how should service designers develop, but how does the organization develop as well? And because of research, I always need to be very precise and choose a perspective. So when it comes to the challenges, I decided to concentrate on the organizational challenges. In the future, I might do a critical paper on service design and how should service design as a profession develop so that it would answer the needs of organization in better ways, but that's to come. And here, research, design, design, research, so on. When I think of my work, yes, I'm doing design research, but I'm also doing it's an interdisciplinary study that mixes design research and management studies, and because management studies stem from organizational studies, it also relates to organization studies. So that's the placement where my research places in the field. Anyway, this is basically my simplified research process. I started in 2017. Yes, at that time, 2014 and 17, I was working as an in-house service designer, and then I applied to do doctoral studies. I started my studies in September. I did the studies, literature review, etc., funding applications, and I ended up getting a Business Finland project, funding with my colleague for €500,000. It was called Design in Smart Mobility Business Services. So it was not just about my research, it was also about algorithms and products and so on, the research that my colleague used to do. So what I did during that project, I was able to collect my data and handle my data and look for the initial findings and present the findings to the corporations and the companies who were involved in the project. In 2020, COVID times, yeah, so I didn't have funding anymore, so I was doing again funding applications, and then again teaching in service design master program that launched in 2020. I was also doing project managing, and at that time Melanie came to the picture and I did my first publication. The last year, yes, Define and Deliver. So since last year, September onwards, I've been doing my PhD full-time since I got the funding from Finnish Cultural Foundation for a year to finish and finalize my PhD to get forward in my life. So at this phase, I just delivered my PhD. Now it's in the pre-review process, and yeah, defense is to come. But when it comes to the study, I did interview 33, I had 33 interviews, and I interviewed 45 persons working in the organizations. And all those persons have been involved in service design projects and have had cooperation with in-house service designers. I also collected I had a value workshop of service design of 5 people. Since I had quite a lot of business stakeholders involved in my interviews, I wanted to have more in-depth perspectives of in-house service designers. That's why I had the service design value workshop. In addition, I had process mapping workshops, but since I had a huge amount of data, I decided to limit the workshop, processes out of my scope of my research. Anyway, I ended up having 500 pages of qualitative interviews, which was a huge work to go through in Atlas TI data management program to code all the content and come up with the concept code groups. But this was an important rehearsal to do the coding and the concept code groups, since, you know, it's basically directed my research forward. Let's go to analysis and results. So when it comes to this publication, towards a more empathic organization is my topic, and this was the research question. And the first phase, what I did this coding, descriptive coding, subcoding, concept coding, and I ended up having those 25 concept code groups. And in the second and third phase of my analysis, I started doing event listing and explanation building. Within those concept code groups, I had a code group, organization readiness for service design, including 119 codes. So I divided that into 3 groups and found out, okay, the journey before service design team kicks off, and the early phases of service design usage. So during of that narrative, I was able to build up a, event list of the major events and customer-centric development actions that happened in the organization during 2005 and 2014. And when we think and look at these major events, these basically tell what happened in the organization that led the organization and the management into that phase that they were ready to launch an in-house service design team. Basically 4 customer-centric projects happened. First 2 here were IT-led development projects that concentrated on online channels and online services. And then R&D becomes involved in 2010, and they do the customer-centric development project. But this was crucial, this last one. They had a difficult situation in the organization. The executive board members had told R&D that don't do anything anymore. We don't have anything to give you. You've given us a lot of projects. We have enough to work with. Stop doing. And the leader, the director of R&D was like, okay, so what do we do next? So they had come up with an idea that, okay, let's go to UK, let's go and interview our customers, let's do something that's totally different than what this organization has done before. And the results they got from there and the concepts and innovations they came up with were so great that first when they interviewed or asked the executive board members to come to the meeting, since they wanted, of course, present the concepts. The executive board members were like, first they didn't come. They sent like 4 or 5 invitations. They didn't come. 6th, 7th time, they came. 2 persons came. They were sitting there for 2 hours. And the director of R&D presented the work. They were quiet. And the director told me in the interview that he was thinking like, holy shit, this didn't go well. But what happened, one of the executive directors didn't say, this wasn't good. This was great. How did you do this? They got interested in the methods, the methodology and the process. How did you do this? And after that, he told the other executive board members to go and have a look. We can't describe what we saw, but you must go and have a look. The CEO went. The current CEO, who was chosen to be the organization corporation CEO in 2014, he went there and he was like, yes, this is what we need. And at the same time, yes, there was my previous manager who was, negotiating with the board members and so on, doing all the arrangements to get in-house service design to the corporation. And so we started our work in 2014. But based on the interviews and what I found out, and this is crucial, change of mindset. Birgit just mentioned about the attitudes and the passion. I found out, I'm also going to talk about attitude, but I also found that a change of mindset is critical. But organizational learning and trust building with the top level management must happen first. If it doesn't happen, it's never going to get into the organization. It's not going to be enabled in first place. So changing mindset, but that requires learning and trust building. And of course, as we see, customer-centric project initiatives and active people are required, of course, to do the action first, to provide and enable the learning. And the support from top management, that's critical. That, of course, must happen. Otherwise, it's nobody's going to allow it. It needs the mandate so that service design can happen. But then again, top-level vision is needed. Top-level understood and saw the impact and started creating visions, started to find out more about service design and so on. But also, it's not just internal changes of an organization. People highlighted the societal changes that are going on. Digitalization, for example. They must be ready because of the societies are changing. So, of course, societal changes have an impact and also affect the decision-making of an organization. The second publication that I wrote last year and is now going to be published, I was looking at the positive values and how do those values impact the organizational transformation. Again, the coding that I had done was there as a basis. I had done the descriptive coding, subcoding, concept coding, and I went into looking at the code group of service design value. It was the biggest code group I had of almost 300 codes. And I started theming. I started looking at what I have there, and I got 10 sub-themes. But since my concentration was in transformation, I chose the first code group, which was transforming business and workplace culture. And when I coded that further, I ended up having 3 categories. First of all, I found out changes in individual must happen first to initiate changes in an organization. Of course, we as individuals, we lead the organizations. What happens in the organization is the result of us as individuals, how we think, how we behave, and so on. So, affecting individual is basically a primary task always to affect the organization, which comes as secondary. When we look at what people say, they stated in my interviews, yeah, making decision makers understand the value we got from the field by having open discussion and asking questions, that we really got there to see the customers' daily lives and their needs. It has changed attitudes, or at least in that project. So here, the person highlighted attitudes. Again, we wanted to create belief in this thing first through project rehearsal and piloting. People's thinking and understanding have changed. People want to do things differently, and they find it natural to ask the customer, then everything else follows. Timing is up. And we now start with the customers. And then he said, it then became part of the one aspect of our strategy. Strategy change happened, really, and we were working in the organization. It was interesting. I remember when we were looking at the new strategy slides, it was like, ooh, as if we were speaking. And people from marketing and strategy department as well came us to in-house service designers to say, lots of familiar stuff you have shown us. Anyway, it became one aspect of the strategy overall. And then the person says here, there we then found out that for us to remain a winner and innovate in this changing world, we need to work with customers, with partners, and also with the organization much more broadly. So, results 2, affecting individuals. Again, as I said, the 3 areas, when we look at the interviews and what they say, I found out, okay, first of all, experiential learning through service design has supported changing individuals' attitudes towards service design and human and customer-centric development cultures. Understanding the meaning and benefits of service design has supported changing individual mindsets and creating belief in such ways of working. And 3, towards a new organizational paradigm, it happens through strategy renewal. So after people had experienced, learned, trust building happened, top management had the belief, they started creating new visions of how could this work more broadly, and strategy renewal happened, and it became a part of the values and strategy of the organization. So, overall, in-house service design has initiated an organizational paradigm change, I could see, since it has started something which is not so common for very engineering-based and technology-oriented working cultures. So, service design has really brought in the human and customer-centric values. So when we come to my third publication, I didn't use the codes anymore. I was in a rush, yeah, as usual, and deadline was coming up. So I decided, yeah, I want the challenges, so I'm going to look into what the business stakeholders say, but I also am interested in what do the in-house service designers say. So I only decided to take 17 interviews and look into those. And since my perspective was in challenges, I just wanted to find the spots where the person highlights the challenge, what he or she considers as a challenge. So I went and took the interview quotations and transcripts related to the challenges, and I organized the quotes into different columns. Basically, I interviewed people from all levels. So what I did, I had people here at all levels when it comes vertically, from bottom to up. And then the topics were like horizontally, and it was a huge Excel that, again, I had to recategorize and do the headlines and create the meaning units. And I found out 247 labels to all of those codes and, you know, meanings. And then I simplified. I ended up doing 5 main categories, and based on the 5 categories, they form the results of this publication. So I found out, related to challenges, I found out that a lot of people experience that there is a lack of understanding service design, and it causes inefficiencies within the projects and frustration among stakeholders in those projects. 2, existing linear organizational processes challenge the use of in-house service design. As usual for engineering-based organizations, they use very linear, like Cooper stage gate models and so on, in taking the processes further. 3, tight schedules and small resources inhibit continuous development, scalability of the developed solutions, in addition to the scalability of the service design know-how within the organization. Again, 4, value-based decision-making collides with the fact-based and product-oriented decision-making cultures, and that's a huge issue. And then again, when it comes to organizational performance measures, KPIs, NPSs, and so on, they are really not aligned with service design at the project level. The KPIs are always business related, but when it comes to service design, doing very early phases of innovation, and then what we do, the work is qualitative, and there are no qualitative measurements in place. In addition, the bonus systems don't get other people and other stakeholders from other departments to work with service design, since bonus system is designed in such a way that, they don't get profits they don't get bonuses if they, use their time with service designers. So, service design requires very strong leadership and clarity about the direction where the organization is heading. And then also support structures of the organization must be built accordingly to support the work and delivery of service design. And now there is a lack of customer-centric norms and practices. So basically, I started thinking of these all 3. What do I have here in 3 publications, and what do I come up with? I talked about the individuals, and then I look into the organization. So I ended up coming with this. This is an individual, and shows an individual and organizational aspects of change when we are going towards human and customer-centric transformation. And if changes happen in these areas, then we can enable more efficient integration of service design and in-house service design, especially in the cooperation. As I said, first we need to impact the individuals. That means attitudes, mindset, and creating belief. And these, I think, are the fundamental assumptions of us as individuals. These are the ones that motivate us. These are the ones that create our world view in a sense. And these are the backgrounds and personas of us, of how we think. What do we think is the right way to do something? Do we want to work cooperatively or uncooperatively? But after we have impacted individuals, then we also need to impact the organizations. As we saw here, the top management started thinking about the visions of an organization. Where could this lead? They started the organizational paradigm change by changing the strategy and values, bringing in the values of human and customer centricity in there. But what's still missing, as I said? Norms and practices, development processes, project management tools, the swim lanes they have in the tools. There are no rules in place in terms of norms and practices to guide the behavioral of everyday work of those projects where service design is. So there is a lack of norms and practices, and we cannot expect that other people know what service designer should do and what's the deliverable of a service designer. The other stakeholders are like, so what are you doing here? Why are you here? What are your responsibilities? What am I, what should I expect from you? So it should be in the level of processes and systems in the organization so that it starts guiding the behavior of everyday working. When these things come in place, the cultural shift can happen. I had defined here what do I mean with fundamental assumptions, attitude, mindset, and belief, but we can skip this since I have a long time ago gone over my time limit. So thank you. Do you have any questions? Maybe I should take Eva to the stage. Welcome. Eva is from Estonia. Yes. She's actually a half Hungarian.
Yes, I am.
And she's passionate about children and youngsters.
Yes.
She really loves to involve them in service design projects. And she works with them to understand their needs, and she wants to understand their visions so that they can come up with great services for youth.
Yes, yeah, that's true. But perhaps we can start with a question from the audience. Is there anyone who have a question? No.
Yeah,
yes,
Christian, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Krista. This is super inspiring, and I'm actually a little bit freaked out because I'm currently doing almost the same project with a large Finnish company as we speak. So I'm super curious to hear a little bit more. You mentioned that initially you did not have executive buy-in from the stakeholders that you needed to get into the workshop. You mentioned you needed to invite people 6 or 7 times. What was it that happened, do you think, the 6th and 7th time when someone showed up and you got that pivot to happen? What did you do differently that we can learn from?
What did we do differently in comparison to the existing ways of working, you mean? Yeah. That's what I was asking also in my interviews. How did you develop services before? And the answer I basically got was that, well, we as business stakeholders did it, and we didn't actually have time. We just made the PowerPoints, and then we just ran through with them, and so on. And so they basically told us that you as service designers have brought that something in here that should have been in place before, but we're not, because the directors and managers haven't had the time to go to the field. But I also understood, again, when I think of the interviews, a lot of people said, now you're really coming here, and we really go to the field, and we do collect data in a systematic way, and we also report it in a systematic way. Before that didn't happen. It was just assumptions and hypotheses and thoughts of what we think as customers need. So they clearly stated that service design has brought in the missing piece of the puzzle. So maybe that's the reason.
Thanks.
I have one. Again, a silly one, sorry. You mentioned that the cultural shift requires both the change on an individual and an organizational level.
Yeah, the structures and yeah.
Could you have you found any correlation or maybe even causation with particular changes? Are there any things you can highlight on both individual and organizational, like vision part and strategy part on one hand, and the beliefs and attitudes part on the other, which are fostering the cultural shift? Any particular changes that are beneficial to that? Thank you.
Yeah, well, in terms of individuals, what we saw there when I was working there, and also what the interviewee stated, was that, and which was also here somewhere, that when they come and be involved in a project, first they might be against it, but then a learning curve really happens and they learn about service design itself, what it is, and how it is done. But they also learn about the customers. So suddenly there is this kind of a change in a human mind. If they were against it before, suddenly they are starting to favor service design. So in terms of individuals, that's a lot of that happened.
So basically being informed helps.
Yes, and also service designers, when they do their work, they all the time have to communicate and tell what we are doing, why we are doing this, what does this mean, and also communicate in the language of different stakeholders as well. But then what actually happened was the strategy change and the value change. But they still didn't, and it's interesting, I actually talked to my previous colleague a year back. I was talking about the results, and she said, interesting, you collected the data in 2018, and it's 4 years ago, and still much didn't change. We are still having just product development processes for the products or IT development processes for the IT services, but not for product service systems, which is a more complex issue. And they still haven't brought them into the project management tools or such, which the organization naturally should still do. Yeah.
Thank you. Amazing story. I think it's fantastic how you have actually scaled this insights and put together a couple of research papers, which we need more than maybe single case studies. I could relate a lot to this because I joined a really corporate organization 6 years ago as a first designer in Baltics from 1,000 employees. And we were in total in Baltics and Nordics 4 designers and against 6,000, 7,000 employees in total. And that's an insurance company, which is actually one of the targets of the service design, very good kind of areas where to develop that. And a lot of these stages actually also we went through, so I could relate a lot to that. But what I found really interesting that you mentioned in this journey of one of the stories that the moment starts with CEO change. There's a certain process.
Yeah.
And there's kind of end of the journey where CEO change is happening again, and a new wave starts. Again, something that quite often is a reality in organizations, that there is a strong personal factor that drives these changes.
Yeah.
And definitely the proactivity of designers and presence and involvement of everyone else to become an ambassadors is important, but there's always this kind of catalysator in organization that kicks off more changes. Was that my question actually is, so we're in SDSI, we are training and educating new and future service design leaders, and I believe they will be excellent in their craft, but what would you say is the key soft skill or key personalities, kind of characteristics they need to develop to succeed as a service design leaders later on in organizations?
I think it's the same as Christian said. It's not better at becoming, becoming better as a designer is not the thing, but becoming better as a co-creator, and as a co-worker, because it's about leading work. It's about leading ourselves and as individuals, but it's also realizing how our work affects others, and also understanding because you know, the stakeholders in the organization, they are our internal customers. We need to be able to understand them and their fields of work and where they come from, so that we can translate our work into their language, so that because many times people came to me, nice that you do service design, what's that to do for me? And I'm an engineer. And, okay, let's have a look. But many don't get it. So the very important skill is communication and stepping into the shoes of others and leading own work in a way that it serves the others, not just you, but the whole team and the organization. Yeah. Thank you. Any more questions?
Perhaps I can ask one. In the early on in the presentation, you mentioned you're actually working on another paper as well about like more of a critical take on service design, and perhaps you already touched it upon it a bit already. But is there any other takeaway that you would like to highlight that service designers really need to like work towards?
Yeah, don't just study service design. Go and study leadership. Go and study management. Go and find out about accounting and financials. Go and learn about production economy and the typical processes that the organizations use, because they use very linear processes. This is the gate. These things must be ready by the gate. If these are not done and clear, you're not going to move forward. So you need to be able to understand the processes and the linear ways of acting and working, because we need to be able to somehow bring those iterations and agility to those to those linear processes, because the process changes take a long time, very a long time. So they don't happen overnight. So you must be able to find out the ways to work in a very linear cultures as an agile doer and thinker. Yeah.
Thank you. Very well said.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, thank you so much for inviting me here. So, once again, my name is Eva, and I actually have a background in child culture design. I actually studied in Gothenburg in Sweden, and it's kind of an approach where you really involve children, youngsters, young adults in the design process, and usually it really starts by taking 2 steps back as an adult. So, but today I'm here to represent the design faculty at the Estonian Academy of Arts, and I will be presenting our latest research that we... One second. Yep. Okay, sorry, technology break. So I will be present our latest research that we conducted together with Megan, Maria, and Josina. And this project was co-funded by the Estonian Health Insurance Fund, and it resulted in a peer support group service concepts for young adults. And today I will introduce the details of this case study that is actually comes from the public sector. So let's start with why mental health. As you can see, according to our latest survey, Estonians' mental health is rather poor, and it's even worse among young adults. So nearly 40% of them are at risk of anxiety disorder, and more than half are at risk of depression. At the same time, we also have a shortage of mental health professionals that actually creates long waiting lists. And to ease the situation, most of the development plans emphasize primary centers and the primary care in general, and highlight the need for community support. However, in reality, the most common service format is an individual therapy session with a mental health specialist within the healthcare system. So therefore, in this project, we asked ourselves, how might peer support and community engagement enable a new approach to mental health services in Estonia? And here in the figure, you can see the mental health service pyramid created by the World Health Organization. And this version has been actually adapted to the Estonian context by our Ministry of Social Affairs. And here the blue line highlights our project's focus. So collaboration between primary care and community services. So, in our research, we focused on patient-centric and participatory approaches. We aligned all our stakeholders to the following research question. What would a new mental health service look like if young adults designed it for themselves? And why this question is so important is that actually currently within the healthcare system, patients, also young adults, are usually not invited to actually participate in service development projects. So it was very important to actually state this question. Yes. Sorry. So, yes, okay. Let's try again. In total, we had 7 stakeholder groups in our project, and they were mainly from the Haabersti district in Tallinn. One of our main partners was Järveotsa Family Health Center, and with their help, we recruited 10 therapy patients in the age of 18 to 26 who were struggling with their anxiety or depression. So within this district, we also collaborated with the local youth center and the local administrative district. And on the systems level, they already mentioned the Estonian Insurance Fund, the Ministry of Social Affairs of Estonia, the Estonian Youth Mental Health Movement contributed with their experience and knowledge. So together we mapped out the current problems and found or looked for opportunities. We organized several co-design sessions with mental health specialists and therapy patients by providing, of course, both of them the necessary privacy. So here in the picture you can see one of our fruitful discussions with the specialists. So what did we find out? So, as already mentioned earlier by the students, mental health is actually still a taboo topic. Youngsters are afraid of judgment, so it actually takes them a long time before they come and ask for help. Once they do, they really end up in an uncomfortable environment. They found themselves in a one-to-one session when someone is waiting you to kind of speak up and tell your story. And they also really feel a sense of hierarchy in that space. On top of that, they really understand or are aware of the time pressure. Usually the sessions are 45 minutes, so it's not enough to tell the full story. And currently within the therapy fund, you can access up to 5 sessions. Of course, you can expand it or renew it in severe cases if necessary. So, in general, as I mentioned, the journey to seek help is quite long. And here you can see the several stages that it consists of, starting with self-care, family doctor care, and mental health specialist care. And in our process, we of course found out that for each stage there are severe consequences, but of course we also found opportunities for each. However, in our project, we focused mainly on the post-individual therapy experience that on the figure is highlighted with yellow, and we named this approach as community care. So, in detail, what did young adults and specialists wish for? In the co-design session, we discussed how the format of individual therapy could be turned around so that young adults learn from each other and how their lived experience can become a value for others. And this is how the structure of the peer support group emerged. The group leader is communicating with several young adults at the same time, initiating discussions and reflecting on topics. And more specifically, here are the 5 most important values that the participants highlighted. First of all, the most important is belonging. So it is important for young adults to communicate with other youngsters who have similar issues and to have a group leader who has a personal connection to the topic and can share personal insights. This at the moment is not currently encouraged within the professional logic, as the professional is usually not allowed to share personal stories. And the second point was personalization. A group is always a group of individuals. Personal interests and wishes must always be taken into account. The third value was clarity, and they named that clarity is also kindness. So it's very important to clearly formulate the goals and expectations, share detailed information about each meeting. And the fourth one was accountability. They also understand that freedom of choice comes with responsibility. For example, one should always notify others if they cannot attend. And the last one, the fifth, is progress. Upon each step, we should be reflecting upon personal progress. So, while trying to conceptualize these values into one service, 4 crucial points and aspects emerged: staffing, referrals, funding, and purpose. So several questions were raised for each. For example, under staffing, we have who is responsible for leading the service? Is there a mental health specialist involved? Under referrals, we had who gets to participate and who decides? How are the groups formed? In funding, who pays for the service? If positions are not volunteer-based, who is paid and how? What makes this service sustainable? And under purpose, how are young adults' personal interests incorporated in the service? How are they involved in the planning of services? And in general, all these questions could be answered very differently depending on the resources available of each community. So, therefore, we decided to organize a design experiment to take into account the possibilities within this district, Haabersti district in Tallinn. So together with the Family Health Center and Youth Center, we found out answers to each of these questions. So under staffing, a physiotherapist became the group leader and youth worker helped organizing the chosen activities. Under referrals, participants were recruited by the mental health specialist. The group was formed based on young adults' medical history. Funding, the group meetings were funded by the Estonian Health Insurance Fund under the group physiotherapy billing code. And purpose, young adults could choose the themes and activities for each meeting by filling out the questionnaire. So, how did the experiment turn out? In general, we recruited 10 young adults from this family health center, and in the end, 6 of them participated in all 3 group meetings. We had an opportunity to organize 3 meetings in total, and unfortunately we had to cancel 1 due to sickness and the Christmas period. And we mainly communicated with the young adults by email and through questionnaires. And at the end, we also conducted phone interviews to collect more detailed feedback from young adults. And we also attempted to measure more medical outcomes using the strengths and difficulties questionnaire, but it actually failed due to the cancellation of one of the meetings. Using the questionnaire, we determined that the topics and activities for each meeting. And for compiling the survey, we asked the mental health specialist to prepare a list of suitable topics. And together, we mapped out the available resources of both the Family Health Center and the Youth Center to compile a list of activities to choose from. And each meeting took place at the Haberst Youth Center in a separate room with different yoga mats, tea, and healthy snacks. For each meeting, young adults chose a discussion topic. The staff members organized team-building games and practical activities. And here you can see the topics and activities that the young adults choose for each meeting. First, we were practicing mindfulness, and then we had a yoga session. And for that, we also involved 1 external expert. For the second meeting, we discussed coping with anxiety, and then we also had an opportunity to conduct street art canvases. And on the third meeting, we talked about sleep hygiene, and for that we also had an external clinical psychologist to help conduct this session, and we talked about self-organized events. So it was really important for our project to figure out how young adults think about this experience, and of course how the cooperation with the Youth Center could be organized. In general, young adults really enjoyed the experience. They mentioned that it really helped them to relax, to have relaxation through different activities. And they mentioned that it's an opportunity to take your thoughts elsewhere and talk a little. They also mentioned that they saw a positive mood after each meeting. They mentioned their anxiety disappeared and they had more good emotions. And most importantly, they really highlighted that they felt a strong sense of belonging. They felt that they can talk to other youngsters who have similar issues and that they are welcome. Of course, there were also several recommendations from young adults, for example, creating a more cozier room, having dimmer light, more flowers and pillows. And also, it was important for them that we formulate our questions for the different discussion topics more clearly. They could not always hear what was the actual question, and they did not dare to ask. Other than that, also the staff members pointed out the need to divide the roles more clearly and think through the measurement of clinical results. Although in our design experiment we managed to conduct only 3 group meetings, it became clear in our co-design workshops that both the experts and young adults see peer support group as a longer process. Ideally, they imagine 12 meetings, and they should take place within 6 months. And why this time frame? It's really important that they have more time to learn from each other and actually practice the newly gained knowledge. And here you can see the journey for this kind of longer process, starting with awareness, onboarding, having 12 meetings, and also thinking through the offboarding process. To implement this concept, the concept of peer support group, one do not have to only cooperate with youth centers. There are also other available resources in each community, for example, cultural centers or libraries. And this idea can also evolve in so many other directions. To sum it up, the proposed new service concept helps primary care patients to receive help from other levels, typically outside of the healthcare system, such as community services. Currently, the Ministry of Social Affairs in Estonia is creating a step-by-step support system for mental health to figure out how individuals can move between all of these levels. And on this figure, it is marked by yellow. Our case study, marked as blue, highlights the practicalities of organizing the movement between primary care and community services and encourages experimentation along the way. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is Kristaps Banga, who is an innovation leader at Accenture. And he will be more talking about the business angle of service design. Please come and join me on the stage.
Yeah, thank you. And if I may do a kind of one question, as I here teach also about the, how to implement project management. So I was wondering if you need to now retrospectively look back. So what was your estimation before you kicked the project? How much time it will take? And what was in reality? And what was this delta?
Can you explain a bit more? Do you mean the implementation phase or
the whole
project?
Whole project.
Because, well, before we started, we knew exactly we have 1 year.
So you were limited,
we were top down limited.
Okay.
So there were a lot of adjustments we had to make within the process. For example, we mainly concentrated on young adults between 18 to 26, but when we look at mental health risks, actually it starts from 16 onwards. For example, but because we didn't have so much time, we did not have time to get parental approvals and so on, so we had to really work on more.
So you adjusted the scope?
Yes, we adjusted a bit the scope.
And, and if you should kind of estimate percentage-wise, so what was this kind of still this change versus initial kind of gut feeling versus reality? So the change was in percentage.
Yeah, it's hard. I don't work with this kind of percentages. I think there were a lot of things we had to adapt along the way, and I cannot give you an estimation. But I think this is kind of inevitable in any kind of process. And I think design in general should support uncertainty. And there should be allowed in every design project to actually like kind of start from the beginning.
Yep.
We didn't really like go back, but there were very like critical moments when we were like, okay, how do we really move on from this data that we collected? And it took a lot of, yeah, let's say brain work to figure out the next step.
Yeah. Any questions from the audience?
Yeah, we have time for questions, if any. If you can still, you're up to questions, Paulina.
Hello. So I was just wondering, this focus group of like young people, what level of mental health problems did they have?
Do you mean all participants? So mainly in our project we looked into anxiety and depression. So it's kind of broad, in our project the participants. there were more people with anxiety than with depression, and also in the final setup, there were participants who were more stable with their condition than some. So the group was based on the mental health specialist and based on their medical history, so they really looked into who they should invite into this group meeting and who not. So there was one example that they did not want to include someone who was a drug dealer, so they left that out because they felt that it creates already an unsafe environment. So in creating this kind of group-based services, it's really important to think through the whole system, how you actually put these groups together, and for this the mental health specialist had a really a high role. Yeah.
Any more? Actually, I have two questions. One is so super specific, and that is, you mentioned that in the group design, you had this physiotherapist as a team leader. Where this idea came from? Why physiotherapist? Does it have some context? I just didn't follow through.
Yeah, I know it was kind of it was also, there was this one moment, like a turnaround for ourselves as well. It was actually that you answered, that you asked about. So it was actually suggested by the manager of this family health center. And it was her idea to actually have the physiotherapist as group leader.
Why? Yeah, okay, I get it. You were suggested, but is there any
a number of reasons.
Insights?
Because we didn't want to actually involve clinical psychologists because they have like a very high. It takes really many years to learn to become a clinical psychologist, and of course their workload is also very high. There is a long waiting list. So we looked into other experts who still have enough knowledge to work around mental health topics, but wouldn't be specifically named as mental health specialist.
Okay, right. And the other question, which is more generic, does it have any continuation? Because there are a couple of insights you can really build up into the permanent service offering, right? To the ecosystem, to the health, whatever that was ministry. Does it have continuation?
Very good question. So it doesn't have one straight answer, of course, because when we are designing for public sector, we are of course very much influenced by politics. So I'm going to answer it this way: that we had an election year. We had the election in March. We have a new coalition, and what can I say is that luckily the results were good regarding mental health. So in the coalition agreements, youth mental health is literally written
defined,
as one of the main points they want to highlight. And of
good.
course, as I mentioned, as my last slide was showing, the Ministry of Social Affairs are working within this, in creating this support system. However, although it's written in this coalition, our government currently looks into different budget cuts, and there is a huge loss that the Estonian Insurance Fund still needs to think through how they're going to match that. So the answer is conclusive.
Yeah, thank you for your honest reply. You not necessarily always get it. But yeah, I think there is also a lesson learned. I like to generalize on things. There's a lesson learned, exactly, that the timing often is everything. Thank you so much, Eva. And now we'll round up with the third participating school. You're not kind of pseudo-academic person,
no.
but still representing Art Academy of Latvia. So, Christoph, floor is yours.
Thanks, everyone. And I was listening with interest, actually, all the previous speakers, also with the limited oxygen, but still processing all the information. And I kind of felt very inspired that some of the reflections I will be doing from the kind of business angle perspective, that was covered both on the Christian deck, here also on a very academic side. And this is where I would like to kick it off sorry. So do you know what this tree is? Do you recognize? Yeah, it's a tree of souls from the Avatar. Yeah. So it's the core of the beginning, or some of the presenters said, everything starts actually with key stakeholders, whether it's politicians, whether it's a CEO. So if you want to change or you want to run innovations, it's actually, you need to start actually from the very beginning to get this buy-in from the main stakeholders. Of course, there is a different tips and tricks. So there was a told before how to do this proper internal sales pitch and etc. But it's still, specifically on the business side, I would say that's a very crucial. Kristaps, I'm working in Accenture for the last 7 years. So actually, internal sales, it's harder than to do the external sales. So trust me, I have gone through these different C-level gates. It takes a lot of the arguments why you need to prioritize, why you need to risk on different innovation stuff. So you need to get in place this beginning if you want to run innovation. And that doesn't mean just inside the big organization. It's also if you're going as a partnership with your, I don't know, service design agency, startup, to complement some other business player in the field, right? So you need to align on a top level. Another fact, which also was mentioned across the presentations, is inevitable change, right? It's all around us. And again, it's not only on the user experience side, right? Just mentioned, it's on the macro level, on the political side. Unfortunately, that's on the global scale of whether it's a war, whether it's pandemics. So you always need to take also in the context all these really different angles of the change when coming up with, I would say, in a broader scale innovation, right? And this is, we talked also in our courses, or those online who are potentially joining the next year and will be here and will be going through some of the courses, right? We look, of course, on the technology trends, but very much also we look on the social trends, industry trends. Our colleagues talking about also different kind of simulations and foresighting around that, because this is a changing environment, right? It's not an easy one, but I believe that those people who are here and also those who are online, these are the change makers, right? And as this proverb, I really like this one. So there is a two type of people, right? Some hide, some use this opportunity and in a business terms, let's say commercialize this opportunity, right? So I believe in any problem, and that's why in these canvas there is this need state, problem statement, there is always an opportunity to kind of look on the other side and understand how you can reuse it. So always think about that. When you see problem, look on this as an opportunity. So we can build windmills, but I believe we are here more to build a business, right? That can be more into the social angle, like healthcare. That can be more into the really kind of Italian fashion industry style or Vespa style. That can be any type of industry, but still in another sense, or that will be a business, right? So what is a successful business? Probably you have heard this term, a hockey stick, right? Those who are pitching for the startups or something else, it's a kind of ultimate aim is to have this always growing a hockey stick, right? So how to get there? So again, this course is combining entrepreneurship with academics. So I trust you know, or you will know what is the S-curve and what are the stages of the failure. Yeah, so S-curve. So that was a spoiler, unfortunately. Yeah, so you have gone through these stages and you know how it's actually from the user perspective on different kind of new services, products. It's about these two first stages is most kind of critical, right? It's about innovators and early adopters. And as you see, if you reflect to the core business, that's a peanuts, right? So you will not make a business if you will just be friends with the hipsters who like your new beer, or your new stylish apartments here in Kuldigo where we are staying, right? So you need somehow to reflect to the early majority and ideally also to the late majority, right? So a lot of the things what you are going through the service design, as I said, it's important that you reflect all the time actually does it make any money? Is it enough to survive for the company? At what stage you are actually with the business? But one point what I would like to bring to attention is actually this plateau point or actually decline point. So a lot of the theory is behind based on the fact that at some point, and of course this timeline can be different for different services, different products, at some point the core business will start to decline, right? So what to do to keep this continuous hockey stick? Those who were with good attention, those already saw this spoiler slide. You just need to replicate these S-curves, right? They can be faster, smaller, but basically to keep this hockey stick, you need to iterate on the same approach within existing company. So building new product lines, building new services, going to the new markets, looking into the new revenue streams. So basically you need to reinvent all the time. Yeah? And as previously colleague said, right, there is these points of the pivot in the existing business in the very early stage when you just see that the business or the product you have created, it doesn't go as you expected or it starts too early to decline. Yeah? And this is point where you guys are service design people are needed, because this is where we need to get creative, where we need to think about the innovations, how to start or how to reinvent this business. Yeah? There is, as I said, it's not on. It can be applied on the big scale companies, on the small scale companies, and the size or the speed can be different, right? But it's important that you understand how it correlates with the business. And this is this tipping point where actually the business design meets service design. Because I believe you have seen all of these three circles, but probably you not have heavily used the one above, right? So this is this meeting point where you're doing a good stuff on the understanding what technology should be applied. You're good on the design side, how to kind of please the end user. The question is, are we good on the business side? Yeah? And especially putting here the statement about the problem-solution fit, because if you will look in the general books, it will be kind of a product-market fit. My personal belief is that actually this is also one of the traps that we too early define product. And we forget actually what is our mission actually we are doing. Because there is a lot of the cases where I have seen the teams, whether it's the startups, whether it's the internal teams in the departments, they stuck to some early product, they have worked, and they just not able to kill it and come back to actually what problem we are solving. Like on the spot, so maybe we just need to think that not only the smartwatch probably is a solution which can take biometrics. Maybe that's a kind of biometrical, just a kind of some stuff you put on the neck or somewhere else, right? So don't stuck on the product. Think when always you're thinking about this, also how you're applying this on this service design side, try still stick to the problem statement, because that also will give you actually a flexibility on the business side. Again, coming to this whether watch or biometric sticker, I believe you can imagine how much costs of the hardware side is in watch and how much costs on the hardware side is in sticker. So that definitely will define also your business model. So this is a perfect fit when all three angles, business model, product fit, feasibilities that you can make, this product is in ideal situation. But if you fail on the business plan or on the business model, how you do it, you can actually create a super nice product or a service, but you will need to close the company and switch off the light very soon, right? And I believe we are here not to do so. So to sum it up, to avoid these situations, I have one recommendation. You should join us, go through all the 3-year courses, and learn how to appear in the sweet spot. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristaps, very much. Do we have questions from the audience? Smiling faces. Yes, I see.
Hi, Kristaps. My name is Eunice. This is a continuation probably from all the questions that we ask you in class, but like, you know, in all our research and all these innovative S-curves, there's always so many ideas and so many options and alternate business innovations that we can go in multiple directions. And as service designers, we have to pick one and commit to one.
No.
Or just based on our research, you know, we have to say, okay, now we are on a path. Maybe we can pivot at some point. But maybe in your experience, you can tell us how to, I guess the word is filter and condense the information that we face. So when we are writing our thesis also to come to some reasonable, logical conclusion about what the business design even is.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I would say, and we have also a colleague who can deep dive much more on the foresight or different scenarios. But actually, of course, it's a kind of a very one-liner design. But in general, there can be 10 scenarios which you are testing out on an early hypothesis, like an innovation idea portfolio, and you kind of validate which ideas could be this next level of the business line, right? For example, the same, let's say, use the same Apple. There are in a backlog Apple car. There are in a backlog Apple business card, like Apple Bank, right? So they are not shooting it yet, but they're somewhere they're probably trying, yeah? So that's why my answer was quick answer. No, you don't have just one new idea. So you should test out this. Remember we discussed about minimal viable hypothesis. Again, not jump to the product development, not spend money, test several hypotheses, which could be the next service, which could be the next business. Yeah.
Okay, any more questions? Smiling faces, that's good. Thank you, Kristaps. Okay, from service design to business design, from business design to service design, and startups and new entrepreneurs, etc. As a next speaker, I want to invite Anda Lerha, who is a project manager at the Investment and Development Agency of Latvia. And you are going to tell us about how you understand and was the business design, this term of design at your organization.
Thank you. I know everyone is tired, there's no oxygen and so on, so I'm gonna try to be quick as my topic is quite different from what you are all talking about. So shortly, yes, I'm working in Investment and Development Agency. Here you can see we are working under the Ministry of Economics, and I'm working in Business Incubator Department. Here you can see all the incubators in Latvia. The red ones are incubators and the black ones are support units. So basically you can see that we are covering all grounds of Latvia. So shortly about what we do on our daily basis, we have two types of programs. The first one is pre-incubation, and it's for business idea authors and newly created merchants. And actually, while I was listening to Kristaps, I understood that maybe some of you could be our potential pre-incubation clients, because you also have to try to think for the future and make the business, and you could try to check it if it's going to be viable. And the other part is incubation, and it's up to 3-year-old startups. And here you can see just the tip of the iceberg of what kind of incubation businesses we do have. Yes, and today I'm going to talk about the journey to being visible and the cases of business incubator, but for my part it's going to be more about the packaging design and not the service design. Here you can see one of our company, as it's a Play-Doh for kids. It's edible, it's good, but people are not willing to pay for more sustainable products. As you can see, it can dissolve in the ground. The kids can eat it if they eat it, but the packaging of itself, it's plastic. And we have understood that people are not willing to pay more for the product. Yeah. Oi? Yeah. Here you could see Flockman. This is 100% sustainable. The men are from wood, the bag is from linen, and the box is from paper. So yes. And then here you can see how our clients have changed during the time. The product inside, it's similar, the same basically, but the packaging they have changed because nowadays everyone who sees green leaves, they think it's vegan, but this product is good probiotics, and it has 100% of cow's milk, of course. It's not vegan. And another thing that I wanted to maybe in your part as well, to think about regulations, what kind of regulations you have, because for this product we have pet and veterinary, food and veterinary services of Latvia. We have regulation. The packaging has to be sealed. Your product can be amazing, but if the packaging is not good, then you cannot sell it further. Here you can see how Rudy's Kombucha have changed their design during times. This was 3 years ago. I think that was 2 years ago, and that's how it looks now. And we all know that people firstly buy with their eyes and only after they are becoming clients. Yeah, here you can see this is the only thing that they have generated by AI. They just wrote in the keywords what kind of things they are putting in their drink, and they generated this. So as some of you already talked about, that's our future as well. Yeah, here you can see that they can offer different kind of labels. No. Yeah, this is what I was talking about sustainability. This is a tea box, but the owners of the company are trying to show how you can reuse it so it doesn't go to waste. And you're buying the tea, you're drinking and just throwing out, that you could reuse it because it's good looking and so on, maybe some kind of design element. Yes. Yeah, and here's another product, that the box that the bike for the kid came in, it can be a stationary for it. And yeah, in the conclusion, I've heard a lot of people using word change, and I know that it's not only for us, but also for you. Growth, and you don't have to be scared to be growing, reusing and sustainable. And you also probably have regulations, as I mentioned, and catching, and maybe it's good that the packaging is part of the product. And in the end, I would like to say that we are looking forward for the new students, because our companies, as you can see, the design for the packaging is good enough. Now maybe they need to work on their service design. Thank you.
We may have, okay, good, now we're talking. We may have questions. Anything to ask? I'm super biased because I'm in a sort involved with all the business incubation program in Latvia, but what do you my question maybe for others to clarify. So what is from your experience, because it's up and running for quite a few years already, from your experience, what is the biggest value those programs bring to SMEs? Because it's largely the SME angle, not exactly startup, but
say the people who are running it.
Yeah, but in the teams of the incubator people. But in what way they contribute? It's are those networks? Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
How you as a program contribute to all that beauty?
Yeah, basically we are trying to help them in everything. Sometimes, like, of course we are giving them money as well, but
that's nice.
Sometimes
Money's
they
good.
need to like some kind of contacts and so on.
Yeah.
Most of the time we're also their psychologists, and I don't know, my colleagues have seen how their kids are growing up and so on. So yeah, we are ultimate warriors.
Good. Yeah, I cannot just support on this viewpoint, because often if you start companies, not necessarily startups, even SMEs, right? If you start companies, that's quite a lonely journey, and you need someone to talk to. So I'm super happy you're around. Thank you. Right, I take the stage back. Among many things, and I hope you're still breathing responsibly, and we're not out of oxygen fully. One thing, today's a great day, not because it's just hot in Koldiga, not because we have the first service design talks, and hopefully we make it as a tradition. So mark your calendars, and you're welcome back in a year's time. But there's another important thing we're not supposed to overlook. Today, first students of SDSI program are actually graduating. Whatever you call it in a modern world, that's a very vague concept. But we have the first people walked through hell and still keep walking, right? As the Winston Churchill said. So for the intro of the program, of how we got here, I would really love to invite to the stage the rector of Art Academy of Latvia, Mr. Kristaps Zariņš, and ladies and gentlemen, the one and only program director of SDSI, Ilze Kunziņa. And I hope you know what to talk about.
Hello again. SDSI Open. My question, where is Djokovic? But we have our own heroes. And I would like to say just some words that it's already 2 years we are dealing with this service design, and there was a lot of challenges. There was happiness and maybe contra happiness, and difficulties was and will be. It's normal, because actually also service design serves and helps to resolve difficulties. Because without difficulties, there is no problems. So, and you see, I am very grateful to Ilze Kunziņa and also Ilze Supe. Without these two ladies, we can't be here, and even this building is thanks of energy of these two ladies and municipality. So, me, I'm only rector. As time passed quickly, I'm 61. Djokovic, I think it's 40. And where is our heroes?
Yeah, yeah. Paula, Laura, Sigrid? Okay. But anyway, maybe I can a little bit tell that, yeah, they are the three, but they are not the only ones who are going to graduate soon, but they are three ones who have completed their master thesis. So there is only a few steps left and paperwork have to be done. And girls are going to be our first graduates and first ambassadors of SDSI. And we are super proud, of course, about them. And where are they? Paula? Yes, there is Laura and Sigrid, but I don't see Paula. So, do we have Paula here? No, okay. So, but we have Laura here. And Sigrid. So come, girls. Come. I know that you are going to stay on the stage as well after our greetings, but yes, we are super happy about you, and we know that you are going to stay with us also longer than those 2 years, which are going to be passed soon. But we have a small present for you, even though we are not giving diplomas today, and there is not official graduation day for you, but no.
What I should do? It's the first time, I don't know.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And my congratulations.
Okay, hi everybody. Here we've got Laura and I'm Sigrid, and we're the first batch of students now from SDSI, and the first graduate. Yeah, there's the three of us graduating. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We participated in this Phillips Challenge, which is an annual competition, a global annual competition for service design students. The first year, we didn't get anywhere, but we got the experience. And the next year, we learned something, read the brief, check what they want, what is this about, and don't think, and go and do some research and stuff. And then we were chosen from the first, there was, I think, maybe 100 teams, and we were among the 20 then that continued. Then in the process, what happens is that there is a team of either from 4 to 7 participants, and we've got Laura, Ligas here, and Paula somewhere, and me, we were there. And then you've got 4 different modules that you go through. You get coaching during the module. We had an Italian coach. Was she Italian, Vittoria? I don't know, but Vittoria pretty much failed us. She never turned up to the meetings, or she did, and here even in the last phase she wrote, "I sort of missed out what you were doing," and we were like, yeah. But we did have this other coach, a business coach, Frank Corkman, who had done a VR simulation of death for people who were, near dying, and really sort of, in a way, very cool, but a bit creepy stuff. And he was excellent. I don't know, most of the time we felt really rushed. We were sort of like had a lot of time on our hands, and then it was total chaos. But we learned to work together, we learned to fight together, we got disappointed, we got happy, we had this roller coaster of emotions going on, and we learned a lot about service design. In each of these modules, you always had to do a PDF, 4 pages, or I think maybe 4 to 6 pages, depending, and a video. And today we're going to show you our last video in the project. After this, then 9 teams were shortlisted, and we weren't among them, but we still excelled in several of the criteria. We were the best team in scalability, in society-centered. Yeah, society-centered.
We had
and the best service blueprint. So thank you also to all of our teachers who are here, who have helped us on the way. And it has been really valuable, all your teachings, and also maybe the confidence that, you know, we can do this, you know, and if not, Google it or ask ChatGPT on the way.
Fifth member of the team.
Yeah, that's what we called it, our fifth member. That was for all the teams. Unfortunately, I can't tell you about the other teams, what they did, because this was something that we were told, you know, don't, you know, the teams didn't know what other teams were doing. But we do know that there was teams from Brazil and India and London and, you know, all over the world. So are there any students here? Yes, there are. I recommend warmly that please participate, join it, and you'll learn a lot. You'll get valuable contacts and a really good reference as well. Is that something you'd like to add?
I actually think that you covered everything, which is great. But I don't see Kristaps here, but I would like to send many thanks for presentation skills and for video making skills. So now I guess, I hope we will see video. And there you will see basically all of the process we went through from discover until deliver phase. So please, the video.
Hi there for the final round. It's Team Solutioneers, service design students Laura, Paula, Sigrid, and Leah. In this video, we will show you the whole process of the research, explore, define, and ideation processes. At the end, introducing you.
Understanding what well-being actually is and how it differs from any other similar term. While wellness can be actively pursued through personal actions and choices, one's well-being is also influenced by factors beyond individual control, including the environment and society. After we defined what well-being is, we conducted research to gain an insight in international and local context on what challenges people have in achieving the state of well-being. All of our findings had the same conclusion in common. Most of the problems people face in adulthood actually come from their childhood. That's why we decided to dig deeper into the youth well-being, factors, risks, and causes. Youth well-being is an important issue not only in Latvia but in all of the world. Doing our research, we came across the term empathy gap, which is the inability to understand or share the feelings of another person. This can lead to misunderstandings, bullying, conflicts, and much more. There are many reasons why empathy gap has formed, but to name few: poverty, inequality, stereotypes, discrimination, and others. Based on previously gathered information, we were able to create a system map for the empathy gap problem. In the system map, we included inputs that create empathy gap, outputs, which are outcomes of the empathy gap. Processes are influencing inputs, outputs, and actors, and at the end of the day, we believe that everything is kind of connected. If not directly, then indirectly. After our first round of research, we arrived at our problem definition. There is a lack of empathy gap, in Latvia, which affects well-being negatively. We needed to learn more about empathy and how it develops in order to solve this issue. We were curious about why some people possess a high level of empathy while others do not, so we kept on researching the topic. We did online research, we had an interview with a cognitive analytics psychotherapist, an empathy expert, and youngsters themselves. We did observation in a school to really understand the situation. All of this led us to mirroring cells, mentalization, predictive coding, and developmental psychology, which all are scientific explanations of how empathy works in our brains. User Journey gave us the opportunity to step into youngsters' shoes and understand how empathy gap works in action. We identified that empathy gap phenomena blocks the needs of community, morality, recognition, relatedness, security, and competence. Stakeholder map allowed to look at the involved parties and understand the dimensions for the problem we want to tackle. The effects of empathy gap outcomes, although they occur privately and unpredictably, can extend to impact various levels, such as law enforcement, municipality, and even government. Define stage was the most difficult one for us, simply because all of the information we have had gathered seemed important. So we put all of the information on a timeline starting from the baby forming in a mother's womb, ending with death. We recognize that the most important stage in human lives for making significant impact in empathy is childhood, from infancy to the age of 12. To get to our How Might We question, we created themes, which we identified from the stories we had previously gathered. From the themes, we created insight statements, and keeping in mind our original proposal, we chose to work further with those which relate directly to it. Insight statements led us to several How Might We questions, and after having an intense discussion, we got rid of the ones that seemed too wide or too narrow and combined some of them together. At the end, our How Might We question is: how might we integrate mentalization and mirroring practices to build empathy in preteens and reduce instances of bullying among and by teenagers? Our How Might We question was a great start for the ideation process. To get to the final concept of our solution, we entered the ideation phase with a lot of possible solutions that we had in our mind already from the previous stages. That's why we started ideating individually, keeping our How Might We question in mind, and that our solution, based on our research, should contain aspects like encouraging children to observe, listen, mirror, understand, and explore. After brainstorming separately, we voted for the best ideas and arrived at the final product we are going to develop further. The product itself is quite simple. We are presenting you the educational toolkit called Empathy Explorer. Let's look at the prototype. Empathy Explorer is an online-based educational toolkit designed for teachers and other children's supervisors as a source of educational materials. Empathy Explorer teaches empathy through 6 modules: communicate, listen, observe, explore, understand, and mirror. There are 3 options to purchase the toolkit: trial version to get to know our product, beginner's pack, which is standard pack with all the activities, and the third option is advanced pack. It includes base pack plus subscription, which would give you 4 additional activities each month, as well as access to the toolkit for 5 unique users. When purchased, the customer receives unique login information. Once you click on the login button, it asks for the login details. Now we are in the toolkit platform. Here on the first screen you can see the 6 modules from which you can choose to what you want to work with today. In the upper left corner there are some useful materials, user guide and frequently asked questions. When you choose the module, the next screen is on, activity screen. Here are listed all the activities divided in group and individual activities. You can open each activity for precise instructions, resources needed, and the aim of the activity. Once you have used it, mark it as done to keep your own record. In the world of education, having the right tools is crucial for success. Just like a builder needs their toolkit to construct a house, educators need their own set of resources to build empathy and engage students. Join us as we explore the transformative power of the educational toolkit Empathy Explorer, a comprehensive solution designed to enhance teaching and learning experiences. Hi. Yep, can you hear me? Great. Paula, please join us. We were actually we were actually watching this video once more right now and decided that we were going to sell it. You know, we liked what we made. Anything you want to add?
Yes, actually, there is one thing that I really want to say, and it's a shout out to one of our coaches, Frank Kolkman, and he really inspired us and helped us, and I wanted to share quickly this one quote that was quite life-changing, I would say. So I quote, "Ladies, don't let your tools limit yourselves." And I want this to be as a food of thought for you all, because sometimes we're so focused
in coloring in between the lines, that we don't see the endless opportunities that we have around us. So thank you very much, and now we are here to answer all of your questions.
Thank you. Yeah, and probably there are questions. None? Like really? Everyone longs for a wine. I have a question, as always, being a curious person, right? So the question is, will it have any continuation after this event? Are you bringing it to life? Sorry.
We decided right now that that we will actually.
Like right now, okay.
No, on the stage.
So the trick is ask them questions that makes them think and decide.
No, we just thought, you know, whoa, that was shitloads of work, and this is really good. We should really do it. And I'd like to refer to all of the some of the other presentations today. A lot was about mental health, and a lot about youth and people not, you know, non-well-being, which is, and this is actually what we found out is that it starts very early, and that empathy has to be taught, systematically integrated into the curriculum, and this is why our aspect on well-being, this was what we chose after a long process of researching lots of other stuff. Yeah.
Thinking about the continuity and the business, can you define who is a buyer? Who would pay for this app?
Yeah. This was actually one of the things that we were thinking about, you know, is it, okay, Minister of Education, too big, schools, private, how much do teachers want to do it if it's not integrated into the, you know, where are the clients? And, but, you know, then again, if it was done easily enough, you know, when you're driving to school as a teacher and you've got a nice, you know, idea and you could listen to a pod or, you know, get an idea, maybe then you do it yourself. But this is exactly what we sort of like. We're also talking about.
Sorry. Actually, some of the persons that would buy this are the teachers themselves, because as we know in Latvia, a lot of teachers are investing their own money to have some good things to teach children as well. But I think the most of all, the schools would be our clients. So that's why we thought of these package deals that, for example, you buy one of the accesses and, for example, 5 teachers can use it. And actually, we also had a user test with teachers, and in the user test that I had, the teacher said, oh my God, this would be amazing to have, because usually she has to find everything by herself, and it's like a place where you have everything, you know? So, yeah.
And maybe just youth groups, hobby places and stuff where, you know, football therapists, that where there are interactions and usually maybe problems as well.
Right, thank you. Any more questions? No.
Actually, I've got something to say from us.
Sure.
And Auntie, can you bring the... Yeah? Anyway, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank 2 people, and who we call is Kiilse and Silse. Ilse S and Ilse K. And we also lovingly call them the hippie and the witch.
Guess
try and figure out which one's which. But anyway, what we've got here for you is something called lonkero. I don't know if you know the history of lonkero. It was originally in 1940. We should have had the Olympics, Summer Olympics in Finland, but because of the Winter War, they were then in 1952. And they had to think about, you know, oh, there'll be lots of people here, what will they drink, and what is a fast drink? So this is, you know, Finland, fast, long drink. And it's lonkero, which is grapefruit and gin. And this is the origin. And it's a grey drink. And they even have a lonkero day. The greyest day in the year, I think, is the 11th of November. You know, is lonkero day. But now we've got these two lovely ladies who went on this journey to start something new. And now you've got your first 3 graduates here. And I've heard a lot about your story, how you went to different places and did benchmarking, and you know, and you've had a tough time, but you pursued. And this is the newest taste. This is this year's taste of Longero. It's a summer taste. Yeah. And yeah, and I think this is really good for you guys, because you keep developing new things. You know, we're double masters. Next year, the triple masters. The following year, quadruple masters. You know, I think these ladies will never ever stop. So thank you, Ilses.
Yeah, so I can probably fill the background. We're actually broadcasted, fun fact, across the world, and many of the upcoming service design master students are watching us, as I saw from the comments on LinkedIn. They're quite actively, and our apologies that we were overlooking the questions on LinkedIn. We just didn't think it works, but it does. So we probably gave you a right hint what we value in this program, right? All right, but yeah, we come to an end of a long and sweaty day, and thank you for breathing responsibly. But we have to conclude with something, and probably, if I may, I can top the story we heard here. I was sitting there observing that beautiful presentation, beautiful thing that Sigrid and Laura were telling us, and I thought that's a good tradition. We probably would make that as a tradition. We don't like institutionalize that students at the graduation just come up and have some, I don't know, diploma, whatever, and bow, but they show us something meaningful. That's a good one. So you're not getting graduated until you show some things to us, right? That's a nice way to actually.
Laura said last exam.
Yeah, just you show us, like, looking nice is cool, but telling showing the effort and the real thing, what was happening is cooler. So that's the first of takeaway of mine. The second was thank you everyone worldwide watching us. Indeed, many countries and upcoming students. Anything to add?
Well, we have 14 students currently, and that's the beginning. The next year we're welcoming 35. And I'm really looking forward to this journey together with the new cohort. And oh my God, it's gonna be okay. Thank you for your attention. Have a nice evening, and see you soon.
Thank you. Where's the party? Where's the party? Like here. Don't go away. Drink. 7:30.